At this time, we will be calling our meeting to order. Good afternoon. At this time, I'm going to ask to call your attention to the podium. At this time, we will stand for our Pledge of Allegiance and start with our invocation. To our great Creator, we thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for the precious rain that you've sent to replenish the earth. We ask that your presence will be among us, that you replenish our spirits, that we can continue to be a good service. We ask that you lead us and guide us with your wisdom and knowledge, that all that we do will be due for the betterment of the citizens, not only of the city of Florence, but all of those around us. We welcome you into this meeting this day to have your way, and we thank you for another opportunity to serve. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, as we look at our agenda, the first items we have is approval of minutes. The first minutes will be from June the 12th, 2023 regular meeting. The second set of minutes will be from June the 20th, 2023 special meeting. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed, like sign. The record reflects the minutes have been approved. Next, we have a special recognition for the Florence 8U and 14U All-Star Basketball team. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilman McCall to please address their organization.
Sure. I would like to ask all 8U and 14U parents and coaches, as well as the players, to please come forward. Can you all come forward, please, for me? Right here in the front. Get pictures.
You come live.
We originally honored you all back in April of last year. April of this year, but it was during spring break. So what I want to do is...
Could y'all please come and stand and face the audience this way?
So again, we originally voted on the resolution back in April, and you all were out for spring break, and I know you were traveling and everything. And, what I wanted to do was to bring these kids here. So first off, 8, you raise your hand. 8, okay. 14, you here? Okay, got some. I'm talking to y'all talking to me. You all want to bring the flag to the front? Okay. So first off, I want to say this. Come on up. Again, we already voted on the resolution, and we'll again get those resolutions to you all, to the coaches. But I wanted the city to recognize our future here. These kids went on and won the state championship for AAU, 8U, and 14U. Let's give them a round of applause. And having, letting our kids know that we have their backs and recognizing them, allowing them to come. I know y'all in summer school now. I know y'all reading books. Are y'all reading books for y'all for summer? Quan, reading books? Yeah. But again, I've seen a lot of these kids play. There are a lot of special talents here. I want to also give an applause out to the parents. I know oftentimes we often give the kids the recognition, but the parents for being at all those practices late at night, making sure that they're at practice, they're at the games, making sure they get taken care of while they're playing. Let's give our parents a round of applause. Our coaches that's here, can you please raise your hand, please? And say your name if you can.
I'm the real guy.
Okay.
I'm Brent Snott.
Okay.
Gregory Platt.
All right. To the coaches, I want to again thank you. I know the mayor probably afterwards said, well, thank you all for what you all are doing for these kids. A lot of you don't know, but you are father figures to a lot of these kids. And so continue to do what you all are doing. Instilling that professionalism, hard work, and sacrifice. It'll go a long way. Come on, buddy. Come on. Put your recognition in. I guess we got to redo the picture now. Come on. Bring everyone in. Okay. You're fine. You're a champion. Get everyone in. Come on, get everyone in. Do the councilman want to
We'll stay back here.
again, to the coaches, if you all want to say something, you can go to the podium here. I think maybe after the councilman, you want to recognize you all as well. But again, round of applause to you all. Continue to do what you're doing, and let's bring the bacon home again next year, okay?
Yeah.
All right, y'all take care. Okay.
Yeah,
I want to thank
if you
everybody.
want to,
the mayor,
so we can give you credit, we get you to come to this podium.
I would like to thank everyone from the parents, the city of Florence, the people at the gym, from the door sweeper to the ones that opened the door, that allowed and helped us this year to make this happen, because we couldn't have did it without this teamwork. And what I keep stressing to our kids and our parents and whatnot is it takes a village. It takes a village. It's not just one person. That's why any help we can get, or consistent help, not just ones that just want to come for a week or a day or two, whatnot. You need consistent people with these kids out here. You got some that'll start, they'll move around, leave, but the consistency will pay off, and it showed with what we had going on. And I'd just like to thank everybody, like I say, from the door sweeper to the head man, whatever it took, we came together, we pulled together, and we made it happen. And I just want to thank everybody that supported us. Great.
Just piggybacking on what he said, to my 14U, y'all, as you know, whoever got teenagers, working with teenagers, it's hard sometimes, especially the ones that stuck in their ways. But I just want to thank you guys for sticking with me, believing in yourselves, and just putting in the work. Part of me want to be selfish and tell y'all not to go play for the school, but continue to believe in yourself and continue to work. All right, love y'all.
All right, thank you.
I want to acknowledge all of my coaches. I have some that are not here, and they are a great help to me on what I got going on. Coach Darrell Gaskins. Jay Charles, he's not here. Jay Charles, he's another one. And Dominic Henry, and most importantly, too, and not, we ain't going to forget about him, James Eason. He's
Yeah. So couldn't make it, but y'all guys know they love y'all. We talked on the phone this morning. Like I said, part of us want y'all to come back, but y'all guys going on bigger and better things. Just like I said, just continue to grow, continue to believe in yourself. All right, love y'all.
All right. To the kids, keep growing, listening, learning, matters until you follow anything. Like we always preach, See the doors is open. It's not being home. Come on, Dax.
Amen.
Come on, Dax.
Get your water. She allows us to get this gym where we can make something happen. He makes it happen. And like I said, it's a village out here with what we got going on. And the same team we took and turned it into an AAU team or whatnot, so they could continue to stick together and grow together, because this is the future of Florence. And we want to continue to keep these kids together, because this is a group of kids. And I tell you, one day it's going to show, and y'all will see or whatnot, how this work will pay off. So we're just trying to keep this group together. Oh, man, they got so many wins, I lose counting. And mine is about them learning something different, even though we winning like that. So it's not even about winning, it's about them winning their life with me. But it's bigger than basketball, with the things we got going on over here. And it's the time we take, besides when the ones ain't looking, that really counting over here with us, And that was mean the most to me. And like I say, it's a village over here with our parents, our coaches. We all don't agree sometimes, because everybody have their opinion about each kid or their kids, but we come together at the end. That's what makes it so great and so pleasant. But thank everybody for y'all time.
Chair recognizes Councilman Paul.
Again, and I just want to reiterate, listen, I think that those who say that the city of Florence do not invest in our kids, those kids are playing at a fine facility at the Pearl Moore Center. I want us to get a bigger one. Let me go on the record and say that I want us to get a bigger one. But it serves its purpose. But also, again, I want y'all to realize, I want y'all to go to a basketball game at Pearl Moore Center on a Saturday and see so many kids and parents there for their kids, keeping their kids out of trouble. And you see those coaches there giving it their all. And I just want to applaud them and these kids as well for all that they do, and let them know that here in the city of Florence, we're invested in our kids and we want to see our kids grow. And thank you all for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And as our young people, I do want to say to you that when I look at you, I admire you. A lot of people really don't understand when you have an athlete is a person who has to be disciplined. And when you have good discipline, that means you can also carry that from your academic career as well. So I would like to congratulate all of you for your accomplishment. And that means that there are greater things for you yet to do. And to the parents, I understand I've been on that end. And to you, congratulations on being able to keep these young people on track with their education and also with their athletic career. Gentlemen, y'all are our future. You will be our leaders for the city, our state, and for our whole nation. So continue to learn how to serve and recognize leadership and honor those who are in authority over you. And just as your coach said, with that, a good attitude and discipline will take you to the top. So whatever you choose to do, make sure you do it well. And to our coaches, thank you for dedicating that time to our young people to do the things that we want to be able to do, but you were called to do it. So congratulations on all your wins, but congratulations most of all for the wins you have in life. Thank you. Thank you.
And we'll have Scotty send those plaques over to you all again. We'll have those plaques sent over to you. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we will move to our appearances before council. And also, when we get to our appearances, I do want to remind each participant to please limit all your presentation to 5 minutes. And, I don't want to have to be like the Apollo and kind of clap you off there. So we're looking forward to hearing you, because anytime our citizens come forth, it's great, because we do what we do because of our citizens. First, I do want to acknowledge on behalf of Councilman McCall, all those who are here who just received presentation. If you desire to exit the room, you may do so at this time. And if you're not, please stay and enjoy the rest of our meeting. We're going to give them just a few minutes. Okay. And as they are exiting the room, the chambers, at this time, you will see before us, we have Ms. Modestine Samuel. Ms. Samuel will be here to speak to the council regarding a potential African American History Museum.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. And Ms. Samuel, I'm going to ask you to give them just a few more minutes.
Okay.
Thank you. So at this time, we will be addressed by Ms. Modestine Samuel. Ms. Samuel, floor is
Good
yours.
morning. Y'all can tell how excited I am about what I'm about to discuss, can't you? Because I can hardly wait to get up here. We are the Florence section, the National Council of Negro Women. For those of you who do not know, Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune is our founding mother. She is also a South Carolinian from Maysville, South Carolina. She has done so much for this country that I cannot begin to tell you the impact that she has had regarding education and economic security for the African American women, children, and their ancestors. I want our group to stand to show that we are here in full force in support of this. Thank y'all so much. Now, I gave to you a packet of information. One of those is a letter of support from Ms. Belle Ziegler from the Eastern Carolina Foundation, whom you all, I'm sure, are very familiar with. She is on board with this idea of bringing an African American museum to Florence. So have we met with Mr. Andrew Stout, who is the curator for the Florence Museum. And he is also on board with this endeavor. And not failing to mention our dear mayor, Ms. Teresa Myers Irvin, is on board with this idea. We started this with Mr. Drew Griffin, and I know most of you know him. We met with him, and we told him that we had been bequeathed a parcel of land that is located at 1511 Stokes Road in Florence County. And we said, why don't we make the dream keep going and have that land transported to the Florence for upkeeping and safekeeping till we can make the dream of Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune come true. And here's our dream. Our dream is to go ahead and construct that museum on that parcel of land. It's 1.9 acres, which I'm sure you all are familiar with because it's encroached right there off of the I-95 exit. And most people who are traveling would be right at that exit. So it's in an ideal location. Now, I didn't introduce myself, but I am Modestine Samuel. And I don't mind talking. And I guess you can see. And we are so excited about this. We have been meeting since before the pandemic, really. And this is where we have progressed from that time. We are looking for benefactors for this idea. Ms. Belle Ziegler said she is ready and willing to start a foundation as we speak to get money to do a feasibility study, which that's the first step of this program. So we're asking the city, and you have a copy of the agreement that we have, that the city keep this land in trust for us. And it is in trust with the city, and the city has agreed to keep the land up until the museum could be built. I dearly miss Mr. Drew Griffin because he was just so excited about this. And I just said, we cannot let this stop. And so we met with the mayor now, and she said she is definitely on board with this idea. So anybody and anyone, we want you to feel free to contact us. This letter has our information on it, that you can contact any one of those persons on this letter to get further information. And Ms. Belle Ziegler said to be sure and contact her if you need any further information about this endeavor. Do we have any questions
At
from
this
the
time,
council?
council members, the chair recognizes Councilman McCall.
Yeah, I have a quick question. I see you indicated that there is a feasibility study. Is there like a timeline on when it'll be done, or is it just kind of just an overview of what's next?
Okay, we're a 501c3 organization, correct? So we don't have monies to conduct a feasibility study. So what we're asking the city is to come up with some funds to help us conduct a feasibility study. Now the money would be entrusted with the Carolina Foundation, and they would be in charge of distributing the money as needed when the feasibility study is conducted. So that's where we are now with this. So we're hoping that the city, after you study this very carefully and find it in your heart to do this, because we did a little bit of research, and Florence is actually 48.48% African American, for those of you who don't know that. So I feel that this would be just a little bit of a recognition for the contributions that we all have made. The only thing we ask, of course you always ought to know The only thing we ask is that we have a home, the Florence section, National Council of Negro Women, which we don't have. If we build this, and I'm saying it's already done, so I'm going to say when we build this, we want to have a conference room with the name dedicated to our founding mother, Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, where we can conduct business and continue to educate our children, because that was her dream. She also founded Bethune-Cookman University. She worked very closely with former President Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Eleanor Roosevelt. She worked with the USO. I mean, this lady has so many accolades to her name. We want to keep that dream alive by continuing to educate our children. And we talk about all children. We talk about all children will benefit from this cultural center, because what we envision is that it will be a musical place where you can teach music. We have music people in our organization. We have teachers in our organization. We have doctors in our organization. We have lawyers in our organization. The Divine Nine is our affiliates. So we have a conglomerate of people from all walks of life who will be able to contribute to this endeavor. So it's a win-win for everyone. So when all of you study this, I'm sure that I'm positive that you're going to call me and say, Miss Samuel, we're going to help y'all make this dream come true.
Thank you, Miss Sanders.
Yes.
Miss
Thank y'all so much for this opportunity, and we will be seeing you all again.
Thank you, Miss Samuel. Do any other council members have Miss Samuel before you leave? Councilman
Yes,
Smith
ma'am.
Jackson.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh-huh.
Now, I know you talked about the feasibility. Have we had, do we know the cost of the feasibility study, or what is it going to cost?
We have been told that it depends upon whom you secure to do it. The cost ranges from, maybe a few thousand to a couple of thousand. So we don't know. See, we need help. And we were told that, we were told that the city of Florence has grant writers who might help us with some of these endeavors. And we want to feel free to tell y'all whatever you all can do to help this come to fruition, we want y'all to do it. Now, I should add that I'm an educator, and it's time for me to go. I can talk all day. Another question?
You have two more questions.
Yeah, and my second question was, where's the location?
Okay, 1511 Stokes Road. If you know anything about Florence, it's like on that bypass from the Thunderbird, where we all eat at the Thunderbird. But it's right off of I-95, really, on Highway 52. And you go by Hampton Inn, and that's Stokes Road. And you go, it's out in the country a little way, about maybe 5 miles out. And it's sitting there. Now, this was the former home of the PD Community Action Agency. So some of you all may be familiar with that. That building is there. That's a 28,000 square foot building. But we were told that it is not historical value because it's not old enough. I think it was built in 1974. Then we were told that it's so dilapidated that it can't be refurbished. So I'm saying that the museum is built, I would hope that we could preserve some of that building to go in the museum, because it really means a lot to us. Actually, it was the Bethune-Cookman Cosmetology Institute.
Yes.
Now, she knows that, and we have some of the graduates in our organization. And I just happen to have some applications. So if anybody wants to join our group today, I will definitely give you that, and I can text as well. So I can text you an application.
I love it.
So anybody who wants to join us, come on. Yes, ma'am.
Now, being that you're having to build a facility,
Yes, ma'am.
have we thought about looking at something closer being that it's going to be built anyway, closer to town, closer where it's not all the way kind of in the county, and we can kind of put it in the city?
Now, see, that's the $1 million question. Because the land is there, and it was given to us.
Right.
So, I don't know how you could move it. So,
Well, we can't move it, but being that we have to build, I was just wondering, could we build closer in the city?
you mean you not utilize that land at all?
Correct. Well, maybe not for the African American. I was just saying because is that county or is that city? That's county, right?
Yeah, it's county. We're going to the county council.
Let me interject here. It's located in the county, but if you know the development, you're coming down Sumter Street before you get out to Ebenezer, you actually have city out there. This is a part of the issue with donut holes.
Right.
So literally, and if you think about when you're coming off 52 and you turn right there where that strip area is with the various restaurants to your name, it's right there, and it's only right around the curve. So it's really accessible off the highway, and then when you literally look past, you can go through the county, then you can hit some cities on it. So you're less than 5 minutes from in-town city.
Yeah, we were told that it's like encroached all around it with the city.
Yes.
Because they have an industrial park out there.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be ideal, really, because they would have enough space for parking. If you need to put up a parking garage or whatever you need to do, the space is there. And we're going to give this land because we want it to live. We want to have a living legacy for Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune. And I mean, why wouldn't the city want to take this land and develop it into an African American museum?
Thank you for that, Ms. Sanders, Councilwoman. Next chair recognizes Councilwoman Barnes.
Well, Councilwoman Jackson asked, I think it's a wonderful idea because my aunt, Isla Jones, was a dear friend of Mary McLeod Bethune.
Yes, she was
and
one of the founders.
And it is very, very important that we preserve our history. There are a lot of people that play on the field, on the Jones Park, and they don't know who Isla Jones is.
That's correct.
And so it is really important that we do preserve our history. But the question that I raised my hand for was about the funding, was about how do we get the funding for this. And so we're looking for grants is what you're saying. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Grants, and of course the foundation, they're going to set up a foundation for contributors. And she said she would do all the publicity in the media regarding that.
Yes.
So, I mean, we've got all the people we need on board. We just need y'all.
Thank you. And the chair recognizes Pro Tem.
Yes, you answered my question saying you're going to the county. That was my question. So we look forward to hearing what you find out when you go to see the county. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Is there any more questions from the council? If not, Sammy, thank you, especially to you and the National Council of Negro Women for pushing forward with this effort, as I think we as a city have to recognize the fact that when you go to Washington, there's the African American Museum there. There's also a museum that is now in Charleston. I actually donated when they started seeking funds to build the one in Charleston.
Yes.
And so to have now the potential of having one here in Florence, that would actually serve the PD brilliantly.
Yes.
And for those who may question, yes, the Florence Museum is aware and has had a representative who attended the meeting. So know that the development of this museum is one that is very well associated with our present museum. It would be beautiful to have these two museums linked together to help increase tourism for the city and the county. So if we're going to do things, doing it in partnership, this is the future of working together. And to have both museums here, if you think about when you go by our present museum, you see a large artwork of William H. Johnson. The Smithsonian has his information as well, but a lot of people are not aware that this is his birthplace. This is his home. And we have a lot of rich history here in the city of Florence that we need to collect. So our young ones, like the children sitting here, will know the richness of this area. And this will only serve to enrich that and enhance it. So I'm looking forward to see if Ms. Sandra requests council, that's on y'all now as a majority. But Ms. Sandra, anything that we can do, we'll gladly work with you and look for grants. And I know that the museum is working with you as well. So whatever we can do within our reasonable bounds, I believe we are all committed to doing. Thank you. At this time, next we have on our agenda appearance before council is Mr. Scotty Murphy to present a gift from the Natural Outdoors Park Woods funds with the Eastern Carolina Community Foundation.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I know quickly, I know many of you in the room one-on-one and talked to you about a lot of these topics one-on-one, but it's just struck me being here and seeing everybody together at one time, city council and city staff, and it just struck me that a city doesn't run itself, and how much work it takes for a city to operate. And so just sitting here, I've had a renewed appreciation for that. So thank you, everybody. And Amanda, I'm going to recognize Amanda. Earlier this year, I attended the first City of Florence City Youth and learned a lot about all the different areas and aspects of the city and how it functions and who makes it happen, and really appreciated that. So thank you for that, Amanda. And please, anybody in the room attend it if you haven't, or whenever she offers it again, please consider attending. It's a wealth of information and very helpful. So I'm here today with my business partner, Hunter Morgan. We both we co-own Naturally Outdoors. We founded it in 1990, so we're 30 years plus as business partners and operating a small business in Florence. We are located at 2519 West Palmetto Street and have been since 2005. And in 2015, we celebrated a 25-year anniversary, and to mark that anniversary, to celebrate the years of business and to think about the next 25 years, we decided to open a fund at the Eastern Carolina Community Foundation. There's going to be a common theme here. And so we did that in about 5 years. Well, 2015, we opened the ECCF Greenleaf Fund. We put pennies in it for a lot of years, and a couple of years ago we decided to give 1% of our sales to Parkworks, which is the name of our fund. And so we give 1% of sales every month to that fund. In the last couple of years, and again, we just did that kind of faithfully, slowly, under the radar, month by month. And but in this past year, we've kind of, with the help of some other people, a new organization's kind of grown out of that called Florence Outside, which has kind of become the hands and feet to help put into action the vision of Parkworks. And I'm just going to read you a brief statement of what it is and then give a few remarks of what it means, essentially. So Florence Outside is a community organization committed to improving quality of life in Florence by increasing opportunities for outdoor active living. We are local citizens organizing around the idea that parks, trails, and green space are essential city infrastructure. We believe that a well-developed and comprehensive plan for our park system could serve a strategic role in guiding the development of growth in Florence in the decades ahead, ensuring our city status as a place to live, to love, to visit, and to invest. Running a retail store, we're public facing every day, and so, and living in the community, we talk to a lot of people on a daily basis, and so we know people care about this vision, but we also know that what we lack, and this is shame on us, but we lack a civic scaffolding or civic infrastructure for people to get engaged in this vision. And so in addition to giving 1% of our sales and trying to build up a fund and ask other people to participate in that, we're also, through Florence Outside, trying to build this civic infrastructure. We're trying to build a community that is not only willing to serve, but is also informed, always growing in our knowledge of best practices, regarding how parks and trails and green space relate to good city planning and what other cities in our state and our region are doing in this area. Because I can tell you, they're doing a lot. And there are a lot of good things happening in our state, in Rock Hill and in Greenville and in Spartanburg, and there's a lot to be learned there. There's a lot of good things happening here too, but there's always things to learn. So a quick example of this is just I just recently returned from Newberry. I attended in June a bike walk summit that included city planners, engineers, and consultants from the state, the region, and also included nationally recognized speakers on topics such as parks, trails, and greenways and their relationship to improve public health. By way of making our cities more walkable and bikeable. There's also a close relationship between our built environment that is walkable and bikeable and economic development, especially for local small business. So that is who we are and what we're doing. And please, council, I guess what I want to say is we're doing this work to try and follow best practices, what other cities in our region and state are doing, to network with planners and engineers and consultants. And so please use us as a resource as you have questions. We'd love to talk with anybody one-on-one if you have questions about the things I've learned in about a decade of studying and watching and paying attention and just flat out pure interest as I watch other cities develop in this direction. And today we want to present a check from our fund. This is our first grant. So a check for $10,000 to help with the development of some new trails out at High Hill Creek Bike Run Park, which is a park that, speaking of a common thread, Drew Griffin helped us get started probably about 5 years ago or so, and is a park on the northwest side of town, right across from Otis Elevator. Currently sits on, I guess the original park was 80 acres. The city just bought an additional 40. We're trying to, this check and what we're pursuing is to raise the funds for the additional trails. And it is not simply, for everybody, it's not simply for crazy mountain bikers. It's bike walk, it's for runners, it's for hikers. It's 80 acres, now 120, currently 80 acres, soon to be 120 acres of really beautiful wooded land. And it is, because of the way it's set up so that hikers go in one direction and bikers go in the opposite direction. And so you can do it without fear of unwanted contact. And so I invite you to go out and view the park and enjoy it.
Do any council member have any questions? If not, well, council.
First of all, I want to thank you. I've talked to Scott and Hunter quite often. If I get attacked by a bear in September, it's Hunter's fault. I'm going to hike in with him in Wyoming. But this change, from what I understand, the increased trail, doesn't it open us up for more competitive mountain biking activities? It's a longer trail, like 7 miles instead of 4, or
yeah, it does. The trail is currently 3 to 4 miles, depending on how you do it. This would increase the trail if you to 100% to maybe 7 to 8 miles. But yeah, we have a local mountain bike team that competes in a fall league all around the state, and if it weren't for that trail, we wouldn't have that city mountain bike team. And yes, the league could potentially host a race as a part of the series here.
Yeah, that's what I was understanding, that we could actually host a race, and they're pretty popular, bringing hundreds of bikers on a weekend. Is that right?
Yeah, they're usually, I don't know how many, Jeff? 500
At least.
About, yeah, families and children. Yeah.
That's great.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Lee Smith Jackson.
And that was one of the questions I was going to ask, like how many locals participate or visit the park on a daily, weekly? That was my question, but it's 500, is that per?
Yeah, and that would be if, as Councilman Braddock mentioned, that would be, if we were to host an event. But right now, it's I don't know what the exact number is. I can tell you from going out there regularly that it's increasing in use. It's fun to see. I recently, and I'm going to tell you one story, but it happens over and over and over again. I ran into a lady that was clearly an experienced mountain biker, and she had a Georgia tag. And I asked her, how'd you find it? She had just dropped her son off at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. She was headed back to her home in Atlanta, and she didn't want to drive the whole way without stopping and taking a break. And so she brought her bike so she could stop in Florence to ride a local mountain bike trail. And that kind of thing happens all the time. It's not uncommon to see license plates from out of state or cars that you don't recognize that or from outside Florence that are there. Mountain bikers or just hikers, runners, trail runners, they enjoy going other places outside of their city to enjoy other trails and other places. But I'll tell you this, and I think this is an important, because I don't want it to portray a trail that it has a narrow user base. It doesn't by any means, and the longer it's there, the wider that user base gets, both in age and gender and race. I mean, I've seen families out there. You'll see a family pull up and they're pulling a bike off for mom and dad and 3 children, and right beside them is a husband and a wife getting out of their car with their dog going on a walk. So it really is. The user base is growing, broadening out, and more and more people are using it.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilman McCall.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I was writing some things down. I kind of lost some train of thought. Sorry about that. Question I had is 2 questions. One, you said it's in Northwest Florence. Where particularly?
I say north. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. It is. It's right across the street from Otis Elevator, behind I think what used to be or still is ADB in that area.
Okay.
Right off kind of the frontage road. I think it's Enterprise and
Prosperity Western, where the fire training center is.
Oh, the fire training center. I should have said that. Yeah, the city has and that's how we ended up with the land initially. We were looking. Drew was trying to help us locate some land. The city owned the 80 acres that the fire training facility is located on.
Okay. And the second question I have is I can hear your excitement, and again, thank you for the grant. But I can hear your excitement. Are you a part of the Resilience and Sustainability Advisory Committee?
I am not. I'm on the Parks and Recs Commission and have been for 6 going on 7 years. My partner Hunter is on that commission.
Okay. And I was saying, I'm real big on. I get beat up on all the time. I always try to find best practices, like what's been done in Greenville, Columbia, Charleston, and how can we bring those things that work here. And so I hear you say that. I would probably ask you to apply for the Resilience and Sustainability Committee, but I think your partner is a part of that. So I guess we're already getting the name for that book. And I think they're working on some projects that kind of similar to what you're bringing now that helps cultivate a green Florence and work on our trails and natural spaces. So again, thank you for what you did, and again, thank you for the grant that you presented to us shortly.
And I want to be sensitive to the 5 minutes, but since you brought up sustainability, I do want to say one thing.
I think that sensitivity is gone.
When you bring a chick, you kind of get a little
But what I'm describing, the beauty of it in terms of greenways and green space and these corridors, not only are they great, tremendous recreational opportunities, but they check a lot of boxes in terms of public health, recreation, sustainability in the way of improved stormwater management and reducing stormwater costs because of the green space and the permeable surfaces, etc. As well as economic development. So you get a lot of bang for your buck for greenways and green space.
Chair recognizes the Pro Tem.
First off, Scott, thanks so much for coming. Hunter, Jeff, appreciate it. But I will add, and I'm going to put you on the spot, Jeff. I had the pleasure of having an opportunity to have a personal guided tour of the High Hill bike path. What was it, about 2-3 weeks ago? that we went out there. So if anybody, any other members of council would like to go out there, Jeff, I know Scott and Hunter, y'all are out there with regularity. I'm sure they'd be happy to take you through it. And just for our community, it's an amazing little piece of wonderfulness that's tucked out in the middle of nowhere. And as I did this walk, and I don't know, we were about an hour we were out there. It was amazing. And, you know, you're so close to town, but you feel like you could be in the mountains in North Carolina somewhere. It had hills, it had beautiful terrain to it, and it had some really interesting flora and fauna that was there. And I think there's some interesting wildlife that comes throughout there as well. But it's a very safe route, and it's well marked. So I would encourage anybody who has not been out there to speak with our city staff, and I know they'd be happy to point you in the right direction as well. But I'll also volunteer you gentlemen to do some guided tours as well. But thank you all. Thank you.
And on my behalf, thank you for being here today. I had the honor of being out. There's been a couple of years back, and I chose to walk rather than doing the bike route. But if you truly like nature, it's a beautiful place, and I appreciated the little mild streams of water that went through. And me being a nature buff, I'm always very considerate of where I'm walking. And I had them in front and one behind, but it was truly lovely. And I think one of the important things about it, a lot of times when cedars are growing, you get a lot of what we call the concrete type jungle effect. But when you go out there, you're completely at rest. The canopy of the beautiful trees covering you as you walk. And also if you're riding a bicycle, the changes in the terrains and the elevation will also give you a workout. So if you're going out there, you can just put your agenda aside. I promise you'll have that effect out there. And I would say thank you to you gentlemen for having a vision to start this so many years back. And I want to make sure that we support you so that we can keep that natural beauty out there. Because a lot of children, especially who are in the city area, won't get to see that nature like out there. So I also would encourage you, whether you bike, whether you run or walk, it's a beautiful place to be. And if you're like me, who used to be a runner who prefer to walk now, it's a good place to walk as well. And so I'm going to come down now to get this presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And we were laughing because now the real check is already in place, y'all. But also, truly though, it's a great place, and I especially like with the children, take them out there. They will really enjoy it. It's a beautiful place. I enjoy my time out there with them. So, proceeding next, we have on our appearances before council, we have Mr. Jonathan McKnight to speak to the council about ensuring safety and applicability of codes adhered for a group home project. So at this time, Mr. Jonathan McKnight will be speaking to us.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Mayor. So earlier this year, I became the president of our Homeowners Association for Tarleton Estates behind Highland Park United Methodist Church. When I accepted that role, I promised that I would strive to be the best representative of my neighborhood that I could be. On a much smaller scale, I try to do what you do, I suppose, and that's represent the people that you have the best that you can. And moving to just a few weeks ago, I learned that a single-family residence had recently been purchased by an individual who intended to operate it as a group home for foster children. My wife helped found the Foster Care Clothing Closet in 2015, and that organization has since provided services to thousands of foster children in our area. We are both advocates for quality foster care and hope to see it flourish in our city and our county. I hoped that quality foster care was exactly what would be happening here. As I told our representative Brian Braddock that day, the best case scenario for me is that this company is doing great work, providing wonderful homes for kids, and we can be glad that they will be doing the same thing in our neighborhood. I wanted to research the company to see how successful one of their homes on DeBerry Boulevard had been and spread the good news to my neighbors. I am sad to say that what I have learned since concerns me. The home on DeBerry Boulevard is listed as the office and is temporarily closed when you try to Google the organization. There is no phone, email, or website present. What does show up near the top of this search is an August 2022 article about police searching for 2 missing teenagers from that location. I called the City of Florence Police Department and asked them to run a search for all police calls that reference that organization, since that particular company had purchased it. I also filed a FOIA request with the Florence County Emergency Management Department for all police calls referencing that location for that same time frame. Since the company purchased the property on DeBerry Boulevard, there have been 112 emergency calls resulting in 79 police reports.
Wow.
I believe that we would all agree on 3 key principles. Number 1, the children in these homes deserve to be safe. Number 2, my neighbors deserve to be safe. Number 3, our community deserves to be safe. I asked the City of Florence leaders today, is one location resulting in 112 calls and 79 police reports safe? Is that what should be expected? To be honest, I don't know. That is why I'm here. Can this organization do something to prevent it? Also, I don't know. That's why I'm here. I ask you to help us understand what is truly going on. I have all of the documentation I have referenced today. I have the police reports from the Florence County Emergency Management Department, and I can provide that copy to anybody who wishes to have it. I would like to state for the record that the staff at the City of Florence have been wonderful to work with. Your employees have acted with great professionalism and care, and you should be very proud of them, Ms. Mayor. Specifically, I'm asking the city to do the following 3 things. Number 1, support those in zoning who engage with this company to ensure they comply with the laws and standards that will give these children a safe place to grow up. Number 2, as much as possible, can we prevent a similar scenario that results in excessive police intervention required at DeBerry Boulevard from happening on Berkeley Avenue and elsewhere? And number 3, if there are any errors in what we are saying or pieces of the puzzle we do not have, help us find those facts. We are far from perfect, but we have tried to find all that we could. We ask for your help to understand the facts about this company and how they intend to manage this business in our neighborhood to help make it safe for them and for us. Although some could not make it today, many of my neighbors from the Tarleton neighborhood are here to show you how concerned they are based on what we've learned. I would like to ask all of them that are able to stand at this time so that you can understand the impact that our concern has had in our small neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Many of my neighbors have already been reaching out to you individually to express their concerns, and I trust that more will be doing the same in the coming days and weeks. Please listen to them and partner with us to keep the Tarleton neighborhood safe and flourishing as it has been since this association of neighbors was first established in May of 1960. I am hopeful that the vulnerable in our community will get the help that they need, and I am proud to know that the City of Florence works so hard to make our town a safe and secure place for all who live here. I pray for wisdom for all in seeking to fulfill the 2 greatest commandments: love God and love your neighbor as yourself. Thank you. you have any questions.
Mr. Murphy, Mr. McKnight, before you leave, we do have some questions, but I do want to acknowledge to the public that Ms. Heather Williamson has signed up, who will be speaking, and she's there with the group home. So some of the questions, I'm pretty sure she might be addressed for us too. So at this time, the chair recognizes the pro tem. After the pro tem, Councilwoman Barnes, then Councilman Braddock, then Councilwoman E. Smith Jackson in that order. And then Councilman McCall, and after Councilman McCall, then Councilman Smith. In that order, please. Thank you. Wait, quick,
Sorry, who was first?
Thank you. Really, I just would ask Randy, if you don't mind, to come forward and just, I don't, on behalf of council, don't know what the protocols are that have led to, I guess, is there a business license that was provided? What steps have been taken thus far to get us to where we are today?
That question is probably better answered by Mr. Moore and Mr. Ziegler.
I will happy for you to defer to the two of them and have the two of them come forward to speak to us. Thank you so much. Clint and Ben, if you don't mind.
Yes, so we were informed of this group home probably about a month ago. We reached out to the owner and she has started providing this information. Group homes specifically are not permitted within our residentially zoned neighborhoods. However, within the Planning Enabling Act, there is an exception, and I'll read directly out of it, that this provision of this section does not apply to a home serving 9 or fewer mentally or physically handicapped persons, provided the home provides care on a 24-hour basis and is approved or licensed by state agencies. So at this time, we are working with Ben along with DSS to make a determination, and the homeowner or the care provider has applied for a permit on Friday. So we're currently reviewing all that.
Okay, so prior to opening this facility, no permit or exemption was obtained. Is that what you're saying?
It is currently not operational, as we are aware.
Okay, so it's not operational yet, and so in order for it to become operational, I'm just thinking procedurally. Mm-hmm. In order for it to become operational, this application would need to get approved by your office?
That's correct.
Okay, and so that's the current status where things stand at the moment.
That's right.
And in order to, what information are you seeking to obtain?
Right now, we are confirming with DSS that the services that will be provided to the individuals that will be living here will be persons with mentally or physically handicapped, so that we just need to confirm that through DSS.
What input does the information about this other facility and the number of calls that have been brought to our attention, is that something that staff is also going to be taking into consideration?
I would tend to say that we have to keep that each location individual from one another.
Separate.
That's correct.
I don't know if there's anything further, Mr. Ziegler, you may have.
No, I think Mr. Moore summarized it well. I know there is a process, and Mr. Moore probably knows this process better than I. There is a process. Once the zoning approval's obtained, then they have to get a DHEC or DSS license. And then once that DSS license is obtained, then there's a process of public notice and ability of the city to have some input. And I'll let Mr. Moore talk about that.
Once that approval occurs, the state does permit the municipality or county to work with the applicant to, I believe it's a 15-day window to find another location, should they both agree upon it.
And one final question: what action steps would City Council have, if any, with regard to this application?
Council would have no action.
Okay.
Is that complete for you?
Yes, thank you.
I want to thank you for coming forth. One of the things that we struggle with in the communities are community members coming forth to make sure crime does not take up residence in their community. We are working now with the rental registry. This is not a rental property because that's in our jurisdiction, that we could, if we are having problems with a certain address, we could ask the owner to evict. But because this is the owner, we would have to look. But I would say thank you community members, because one of our problems with our police force, they don't get the information from the community. And so you all are being proactive, and you are staying abreast, and you will get the information needed to them. And I can guarantee you they're going to do everything they can to help you.
Councilman R.
Yeah, Jonathan, I appreciate you coming, and I think that you are the best spokesman for this. You enjoy, just because nobody's going to question your heart. You know, a lot of times when a group home comes to a neighborhood, the concern is of the neighbors is that, you know, it's going to mess up our neighborhood and not here. You know, we want to help, but not here. And that's not the case in this situation. I know that from your support of the foster closet and your support in the community, that's not the case. And I just wanted to make sure that was absolutely clear to everyone here, that there's no lack of heart for the people that we serve. I must be on the border of your association. I'm on the corner of Marsh and Rutledge, and I live right beside a group home. And so I've seen both worlds. I've gotten called about DeBerry, the house on DeBerry, several times because it's in my district, and I've never had a situation with the house right beside me. And so, you know, they can be managed in different ways. And you know, with what I do professionally, that protected classes are very important and very dear to me. But, you know, I think that prudence is how we need to move forward. And just because something is allowed, the law is put in place to help and protect people in this situation from being excluded from living in a normal neighborhood. But in that, I think that there's some room for abuse also, and making sure that these children, these individuals are getting the love and care and the safety in the home and community environment that they need is what the focus is here. And so whatever, you know, I know there's no action that can be taken by council, but there is action that can be taken by me to be a voice and make sure that these children are taken care of. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Clint, you go ahead, and then we'll follow you with our Councilman Lee Smith Jackson.
I would like to further clarify what the question Councilman Jubali had regarding council action. Approval and review would not take any council action. However, once staff has finalized our review, should we object to the location of this, make that decision to object to the location of the home. There is a provision within the state code that allows for a representative of the city, representative of the home, as well as a third party to work together to determine another location for this facility and work with one another to finalize that. And then later on, should there be any issues or concerns that get raised, the governing body does have the opportunity to apply to a court for a contempt of jurisdiction, and certainly Ben can elaborate a little bit more on that. But there is further action that can take place should council determine that.
But let's be clear that for that to occur, it's going to have to be based on legal protocol. It cannot be based on personal desires.
That's correct.
There is legal protocol that would have to be followed to get to that place. So it would not be a decision that the council would come to just because that, you know, someone didn't like it. So I just want to always make sure we know it's always a legal protocol. Next, we'll acknowledge Councilwoman Nee Smith Jackson.
My question is, the house on DeBerry, is that now closed? Or is it still operational?
I don't know. I've tried to research the company and contact them directly, but that information is not on the website. there is no website listed on Google, and no phone, no email. So I don't know if they're closed or not.
And do we know when that property was purchased on DeBerry? Because we talked about how many calls and reports. Do we know in what period of time?
Property card shows it was purchased in June of 2018. The first phone call to Florence Emergency Management was August of 2019.
And you said it was purchased in what month of 18?
June of 18.
Okay. All right. And so we don't know if the DeBerry one is still operational, but this is going to be an additional group home. Is that what we're thinking this is?
The last phone call was May 29th, 2023. That was on record. So, I don't know if they're operational now. But what was the last question? I'm sorry.
Would this be considered a second group home, or are they replacing DeBerry?
This is a separate facility.
Oh, separate facility. Okay. But it's not owned by the same company?
Owned by the same company.
Okay, gotcha.
Does that complete your question, Councilman?
Yes, that does complete my questions. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilman McCall.
I think Councilman Smith is in order.
Well, I hit you first, then Smith. I was going down.
Okay, all right, hit it,
Yes,
okay.
Councilman McCall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think George answered most of my questions. The only question I did have, and I may have not heard it correctly, but if the group home is there, are they required to get a business license, or are that licensed in the state?
They are licensed in the state. I'm not sure.
But they'll be within the city.
Is it considered a business? I mean,
I believe so. That's something we can
take a look at. Yeah. So potentially revoking the business license is not for a council thing, but something that the city manager office can look at if they have
it takes council action to revoke
a business license. Okay.
There are other methods I would recommend.
Okay, but that's after you all finish the investigation, and you'll bring, I guess, a recommendation from staff. So, okay, just wanted for clarification purposes.
Chair recognizes Councilman Smith.
I guess going to last all of the good questions I've been asked. I want to thank you for coming, your passion for foster care, for foster children. It shows. It shows. We got some stats. Excuse me. Your care for foster children and group homes. My concern was we were talking about, I forgot how many police reports that we have?
70.
Are there any other questions? Y'all give us one moment. There's some text difficulties.
What's on that end?
Owner of the home, the operator, has come seeking zoning approval for the location of the home. Now, interestingly, under the state statute, a home for mentally or, as Mr. Moore described, mentally or physically handicapped, 9 or fewer, is exempt, but it has to be licensed by the state. So they haven't gotten a license yet, but they're asking for zoning approval. But you can't get the zoning, you can't get the license to get zoning approval. So it's a little bit of a chicken or egg problem, but assuming that all gets worked out, I'm sure Mr. Moore will be able to sort through that with DSS. Once DSS decides to grant the license, they have to give notice to the city. And the city has 15 days to object. And once that objection is filed, a 3-person committee is put together, as Mr. Moore stated, to come up with an alternative location. And that that consists of a representative of the city, a representative of the operator, and a third person that they mutually agree upon. Once that decision is made, if it's not agreeable with the city can appeal it. So the city does have a pretty strong hand on the tiller in this matter with regard to whether a home goes in a certain location or not.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman E. Smith Jackson.
But it would only, the third party would only happen if the city objected?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I wanted to make sure that was right.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that complete the questions for Mr. McKnight? If that's all the questions for Mr. McKnight, thank you for coming forward and bringing forth your community concerns.
Thank you.
At this time, we will recognize, and I'm going to ask that Ms. Heather Williamson please come forward. A little louder for us, please.
How about now?
Can y'all hear me?
Spoken, so.
That's better when you spoke in that tone. Thank you.
All right. So my name is Heather Williamson, and I'm a clinical social worker. I work with children in DSS custody for more than 20 to 25 years. And about 4 years ago, can you hear me now?
Heather, can you,
How about now?
Heather, if you take and kind of maneuver it down like this, closer to you.
Yeah, I'm very soft-spoken. I'm trying. How about now? I'm trying.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm a clinical social worker, and I have worked with DSS kids for about 25 years. I worked with children in facilities and in institutions who were locked away and felt like there was a need to have them live in the community. So there's also a crisis in foster care right now for placement. There just are no beds. So what we're doing at DeBerry has been a little bit experimental. I'll be the first to say. We also we don't want to put hands on our children. We don't want to do restraints if we can. So most of the calls have been because a child walked out, and we may need to call it to get assistance. But we have learned a lot about what to do with that. It's not because they're being abused. It's because we have trauma, and we're trying to let them learn to live in the community. The work that we're doing matters. And, I mean, I can hear these numbers and they're taken out of context, but you don't realize what these kids need. They're sleeping in offices. They're sleeping in respite stays. They don't have anywhere to go. And to be painted that way is upsetting. I mean, but I understand it. It's okay to target me, but these children have needs. I heard us earlier talking about investing for kids and what their needs are. What do we, if we're not allowing them to live in the community, if we're not giving them the opportunity? These kids go to school. Our children, for all of the negative things that have been said, our children went to the special needs prom, all of them. And they had not gotten prom dresses before. They'd never done those things. They actually stayed in school. We had one little girl who hadn't been in school in 2.5 years because she had no bed to sleep in. But with us, she's actually in clinical day. She completed an entire year of school. She won a financial literacy award, and we're sending her to live with her family in Maine. We made it long enough that she's staying with us to do that. And I think it's really easy to look at numbers and say, oh, they're villains, or they're doing this, that, and the other. But if you take it out of context, anything looks bad. I'm just trying to care for children. That's all. We haven't hurt anyone. We haven't damaged anyone's property. Every now and then you have a traumatized child who will get a little upset, and they need some help. How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I'm 50 years old, and my voice hasn't changed a whole lot. So I'm trying. But our kids need help. These children need help. They're little girls. They're special needs. They need placement. I got a call the other day for a child with cerebral palsy. She's been in a respite stay for 3 months. They have nowhere to put her. She's moving from place to place. And that's all we want to do, is try to do that. We're not trying to aggravate you. We're not having signs. I don't know about the Google thing. I don't advertise with Google, so I have no idea why we don't. The other reason that we don't put a whole lot of information online is because we're trying to protect their privacy. Now, these kids don't want anybody to know what they're doing. They want to live there just like you. They don't want anybody to know how they're living. And if you want to come see my house and have a talk with me, I'm happy to sit down and let you do that. I am happy to let you come and sit and have a cup of coffee and ask me any questions you want. But I cannot stand by and let you say that these children are being shouldn't belong in that community, that they shouldn't live in a house. They have every much right as anyone else.
Thank you, Ms. Williamson. I know that we do have at least one council member who wants to speak, but I do want to state that listening to you, and I heard the things about the sites. Being in the medical field, I do understand privacy, and it's not necessarily that we need to actually advertise, because what you're trying to do is get individual into the home, keeping me in more of a normal situation. But what these calls are, predominantly, majority of these calls from the resident itself because of issues with the children within the home?
Right, so if we get, often when a child, especially when a child first comes, they struggle. And if they walk out, we don't want to do restraints. So we may be walking behind them. If it's something that we can't right away get them, then we may need to call for assistance. Sometimes you'll have a child that acts out. We are constantly working on that. And in looking at Berkeley, we are working on adaptations to help to put more supports in place so that that doesn't happen. Like I said, this is experimental. I've never done this before. There's no big company behind me. I'm just trying to take care of kids. And we have learned a lot from the Berry. And we're planning to put all of that into Berkeley.
Thank you. At this time, the chair will recognize Councilman Smith. Get y'all a whole 1 minute.
Thank you for the information that you've provided. I'm sure a lot of us don't know what all goes on into group homes and into foster care. My main question is about the average stay, so we know for information. Was the average stay for a child in a group home or foster care?
So ideally, it's 6 to 18 months, depending. We do have a few that will stay with us until they're 21, just because they've had termination of parental rights, and maybe they just don't have a caregiver available.
Okay. So how can so I know you were saying about advertising. So are you contacted through DSS for someone to come into your foster care?
They directly place the children with us. We are contracted with the Department of Social Services. Like I said, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. This is all I've ever worked with. But even for me, it was a learning curve. I admit it. But I do believe that the purpose is valid. They belong. You have children who weren't able to go to school. Now they go to school. You have children who, we go to the Y to go swimming. We're going on vacation. We try to do as much normal behavior and actions, like a community training, I guess, would be the sense, if it makes sense.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilman McCall.
Thank you again for showing up. And I want to thank everyone for showing. I think my time on council, what I've learned is oftentimes we hear the problem here when it sometimes can be resolved just as a community conversation.
Yes.
So I think you have two passionate sides, people who want to have a safe and vibrant community, as well as you advocating for kids. I would encourage you all, if you can, I think she's offering you all a cup of coffee. I don't think the city can support that. I don't think we can. Maybe we can, but I think a conversation is what's needed here more than anything. I think it's a benefit for both to hear both sides, and if there's something that can be worked out, so can you work something out? And I think the state law provides that for the city representative, a member for the community as well as the organization to see what can be done. Again, I think you all are coming from a great heart. And I think, again, a conversation is what's needed here. And if we have to, I hope we don't have to deal with it. I mean, I hate it. I always like to see can you get things resolved beforehand. But I think everyone is here is in here for the right reason. I think, again, the conversation is what's needed more than anything. So thank you again for coming, and thank everyone for coming and being part of this process, because that's how we get things done in the city is through talking with one another. So again, thank you all for coming out today.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman E. Smith Jackson.
Thank you, and I want to definitely copy his sentiments. We appreciate everybody coming up, and community engagement is definitely one thing that really helps us as council members protect and serve the community. But we ain't no police officers, we don't protect, but we definitely help serve. We definitely put in policies to help. But my question is, how many kids do you currently have?
The maximum that we can have is 9.
And how many do you currently have?
9.
You currently have 9. And you said the facility is open
It
on
is.
DeBerry?
It is. I don't have any control over Google. Like, I don't know. I've had people call me. At one time it said we were a furniture store. I have no idea why it says that.
Okay. And I understand what you're saying is, you know, this is experimental, you know, trial and error on DeBerry, and you really want to integrate them into living in the community. And what I was wondering is there a way that we can transition them this way instead of starting out this way? And again, I understand it's trial and error, unconventional, that kind of thing, but have we thought about maybe having a facility where we can kind of then transition them into the community instead of just boom, you're in the community, deal with it?
Many of the children are transitioning, and we are the step down. So it can be, you know, trial and error at times. I think we have learned a considerable amount, and the adaptations that we're making at Berkeley, I think, are going to be much more helpful, and we're going to put them also at DeBerry. I'll be honest with you, I had one child that probably was underlying a lot of our stressors. I loved her. But I did, and since we have done that, it has reduced considerably.
And so my final question is, what did we learn at DeBerry that we're going to take now to this new area? Because I know their concerns is they don't want the police being called to their neighborhoods and the reports. So what is it that we're taking to this new location that we...
Part of it, I think, is our screening processes. The needs right now tend to be more special needs 3 kids, whereas before we had more what you would call, they would have 2. They would have a dual. They may have the mental health and the special needs, if that makes sense. So our screening processes, I think, have gotten better, and making sure that we can safely serve that type of kid, that specific kid. DSS has gotten much better about making sure that all the information is provided, so that we don't get a child and go, oh, you know, that happens. If you've done this, we know what happens. You'll have a child that comes in that really may not be the right fit for that level of care. So working to ensure that we get that child placed where they need to be is a big part of what we're doing. Adaptations to the property itself.
And what is the child to I guess, caseworker ratio? I mean, you have a maximum of 9, but how many caseworkers do you have, or how many staff is there to deal with 9?
So the ratio is actually 1 to 5, but we are 1 to 3. So we have increased that also.
Okay. So y'all have 9 kids, so you're going to have 3 staff, and each staff, and each staff member is accountable for 3 kids.
That's correct.
Does that complete it? Chair recognizes Councilwoman Barnes.
All questions were answered.
Okay, Chair recognizes Councilman Braddock.
So, you know, again, thank you for your service. I work at the House of Hope. We help men, women, and children. We have 3 foundations for how we serve people: safety, dignity, and the love of Christ. And so dignity, how folks are housed and where they live, is very important. But we are also cognizant and want to be good neighbors. And we want to be where our children can play freely without any kind of scrutiny. How do you go about your site selection? How did you choose, when you're looking at a place, to DeBerry, Berkeley? Because, you know, you can also be on a spot with 2 acres of land that has a little bit more room, and it's still involved in the community. It's still a home environment. You know, Trent Hill Center off of Bobo Newsom Highway. Scotty Hill, very successful, does the same thing that you do. but they're not right in the middle of a neighborhood. I don't think that they're any less successful, and I don't think that they care about the children that they're serving any less. But what they do care about is being a good neighbor and making sure that the needs of the children that they're serving are met, but also that the expectations of a quiet neighborhood that people have invested in is also taken into account. And that's what I want to know. When you select a site, how are you doing that?
So Trent Hill has more children than we would be serving, for one. Inclusion is important, in my opinion. And historically, individuals like this have been sort of placed out on the periphery. They have been stuck in the country, anywhere out of the way. And I think that inclusion is important. I think that they need to feel like they are a part of the fabric of the community. And we're much smaller. I mean, you're talking about a small group of children. We're not talking about 20 or 30 kids in a house or facility. We're talking about 9 or less. And so they want to be in a home. And we want to give them that opportunity to be as close to it as possible so that ideally they can go and live in a home, in a neighborhood. And they're not going to say that kid's going to have to live in the periphery or a foster home out in the country.
Well, I don't think that the children stay.
Please allow it finish.
I think that what I'm trying to say is that we want to give that real life experience. I think it's what you're asking. Because when they leave us, a lot of times kids live in facilities or places like that, and you can't reproduce the real world, if that makes sense. But if we actually let them live in the real world as much as humanly possible, they get that real experience. And then they can go and live in a foster home or return to their families.
Thank you, Councilman.
There's no monetary incentive or anything to be in the city limits or the size of the home or the style of home?
No. I mean, if that's what, I guess that's what you're asking about, like, what about to sit in the house? It's a house. I mean, we just like the house. There was no intent to harm anybody. I mean, it just looked like a regular family home, and that's what we wanted for them. And I apologize that if that's not answering your question.
Well, it just, I don't think that the children of Trent Hill feel any less included in the community.
I'm just saying it's a different purpose. You know, they all want to be cared for, don't get me wrong. It's also a different level of care too. I mean, because they have babies and that sort of thing, so there are requirements that they have to put into place that are different for teenage girls.
Ms. Williamson, thank you, and also thank you to Mr. McKnight. I wanted to simply conclude with being in the medical profession myself. I think that we all noticed that we just announced the Florence Behavioral Health Hub. We are in a society that we do have things that we need to address. Mental health is one of them, also special needs. And so I echo what Councilman McCall have said. These children need a home. Yes, ma'am, you're welcome. But thank you for coming today. But these children need a home, and these children desire a community. The community has concerns because the communities are concerned about the type calls that may be associated with such facilities. But we can't mandate it, but we can encourage that the community, Ms. Williamson, and especially Mr. McKnight, that y'all come together as neighbors to communicate. Because we as a city, if we were to get involved, we'll be getting involved on the end of more of a governmental process. And you notice the procedure, as they stated, was after you go through the process. If then there was something occurred, then we were getting, but that's more on the legal end. So at this phase of where you're at, you're in the process where y'all can communicate with each other and see what can be done. So we would encourage y'all, to do that. We can't mandate it, but we would encourage it. And as for us as a whole of a city, I would like for all of us to realize that the reality of it, as our nation is looking more at mental health and special needs, and for communities, for individuals who need those support services to be in place, you might see this happening more and more frequently. So I'll encourage y'all to get together to discuss this, to see what kind of factors that maybe the community could address with the facilities that might make us better when it comes to having such homes in the community. But also it may help the service provider for those homes also realize some things they can even do better. So I would encourage y'all to please do that, and I hope that y'all will come to a resolution, and so that we won't have to step in. Because as we know, the South Carolina state has laws that are in place to govern such process, and we as a municipality, we're good, but the state will supersede us. So please, if y'all can come together and see if y'all can find a resolve, we would appreciate that. But we thank both for coming today, because we do understand the concerns on both issues. So please, see what y'all can do to resolve. And if if we have to be involved, we're readily available, but we prefer it if y'all can resolve it first. But thank you to all parties for coming forth. Thank you for providing service to the children. Thank you to the community and to the president for being alert to knowing what's going on in your community. I believe that community is that front line, that you are the ones who watch over your neighbors and take care of each other. So thank you for doing that so well. We truly appreciate it. If there's no other questions or comments for the council, I know that we have you raising your hand, but since you're not on the agenda, I would, if it's nothing different from what we have, please speak to each of us after the meeting. We'll take a break before we go into executive session, but please feel free to contact us on an individual basis outside of the meeting. So we thank y'all at this time, and we can proceed with our agenda as outlined. Next, we'll be moving into our ordinance in positions. The first one that we have here is Bill number 2023-22. I'm going to take a moment to give the community members a time to leave the chamber. That's what I was wondering. Council, if there's no objection, do y'all want to take a 5 to 10 minutes break? We'll take a short break. And we just complete the first portion of our agenda. And at this time, if there's no objection, there's a matter that I do want to bring before the council. If there's no objection, I would like to recognize one of our city employees who is retiring. If there's no exception to it, I didn't get to go to the restroom, y'all. But if there's no objection, I would like to acknowledge the retirement of Chuck Pope. And Chuck is so shy, y'all. He didn't even want to let me give him an award out here. But Chuck, please stand and please come first exit, please. Chuck has been with us for 32 and a half years, and he loves us so much that he retired and came back and worked with us again. But this time he told me he's definitely retiring. But so Chuck, thank you for your years of service. We truly do appreciate it. Thank you for all that you've done. And I know that you love the city, and we love you too. So thank you. So at this time we will proceed with our agenda as outlined. We're moving into our ordinance in position. First we have Bill number 2023-2022 for a second reading. It's an ordinance to amend Articles 4 of Chapter 2, specifically Section 2-206 of the City of Florence Code of Ordinance, amending the designated area to include the East Palmetto Corridor within the municipal limit. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? At this time, we're asked that Mr. Clint Moore please come forward to represent from here. And at this time, I think we had two individuals. We had Councilman Braddock and Councilwoman Neesmith Jackson to both speak. Which one will yield to the other one?
I'm going to yield Braddock.
Okay, so Chair now recognizes Councilman Braddock.
Well, in lieu of Business Development Committee and the new comprehensive plan, I wanted to move to table this ordinance pending the Business Development Committee's work of the development of a comprehensive corridor plan for the city in furtherance of the city's recently adopted comprehensive plan to cover all of our bases at the same time.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
I'd like to second.
So we have a motion and a second that we table the present ordinance until it is viewed by the development of a corridor plan, business plan. Do we have any discussion?
Well, I want to.
Chair recognizes Councilman McCall.
Well, if we're going to table it to further with the comprehensive plan, I want to reiterate from my last note from the previous meeting. I'll do a first reading. If we're going to look at corridors, I want us to address the corridors that has been left and neglected for decades in the city. This is East Palmetto. I'd also be able to look at North Oakland Avenue and North Irby Street, as well as again all corridors. I want to make sure. I want to make sure we're looking at every neglected corridor in the city to make sure that they're equitably looked at. So if that's what we're doing in the Business Development Committee, I'm in support of it. So yeah, just want to get it for the record.
Okay.
An all-inclusive approach.
All right. Okay, and I do want to clarify so that everyone, the corridor overlay district is not for corridor improvement. It's a corridor overlay, just as what we have on Irby Street already, to extend that so that there will be other grant opportunities. So as far as improvement, it's not going to service what you're looking at for how to make it visible improvement. So for that reason, when we do, I will object, because the purpose of what you're looking at is not the purpose of what this ordinance is for. So at this time, is there any other discussion? Chair recognizes Councilwoman Neesmith Jackson. After Councilwoman Neesmith Jackson, then Councilman Smith.
All right, so what we're saying is all corridors are going to be handled by the business committee?
Just reviewing this one and then looking at the other ones to have a comprehensive that goes with our comprehensive plan for all the corridors.
So that's going to be done by the business committee.
Point of order, though. Point of order. With committees, please understand, by state law, the council does not subrogate their responsibility to first be viewed by the committee. The committee actually serves at the will of council. So now what would happen here is that this information right here will only be looked at by a subcommittee or by a committee if the council deemed it. So the committees can request this, and then the council can appoint them to do so. But no, the committee does not get information, then come to the council. That's reversed. So now for this right here, the council can state that they want the business committee to look at this. So no, the council would have to give that. It's not the other way around by state law. So what we're here, what would occur with this right here, you as a council would say that we want the business committee to review this. That's how it legally works. No. So, okay, council. Okay.
I got one more question.
Okay.
Second question, over here in B, it says threshold investment as described of at least 5K and a maximum of 20K property owner, business owner, and or developer providing a one-on-one match. What does that mean? Because that's I think that was the only one I've seen in all the rest of them.
This would reflect similar to our facade improvement program downtown, where if the city is going to grant funds for, let's say, $5,000, then the property owner is required to put in $5,000 as well.
And this is for what?
This would be for
Any improvements in that district?
for specific properties. So an individual property owner or business would apply for this, and I would call it curb appeal projects. So enhancement that provides an enhancement for the public, such as facade improvements or landscaping or something of that nature. It would be for those items, and they would be required to meet a minimum of $5,000 investment, and we would put in $5,000 as well.
So this is not contingent to residential properties who want to upgrade their
This is for commercial. That's correct.
Any of my questions?
Chair recognizes Councilman Smith.
So for clarity, the business committee is going to look at, and I guess I'm harping on what Councilman McCall said about the negligence of the other corridors. Are we going to also look at, is that in our comprehensive plan, I believe it is, for overlay districts in those corridors as well? Is that one of the major things that we're looking at through the business committee? Or, Clint, are we actively, I guess second part of the question, are we actively seeking grant or funding for other overlay districts as we speak?
So this in particular is not what would be considered an overlay district per se. So an overlay district by planning and zoning would be certain restrictions or requirements within an area. This is more of an incentive boundary, so an area that would meet the guidelines that we would set forth within a policy, such as the Irby Street corridor, to provide enhancements or help assist in those enhancements. But the comprehensive plan itself does, and the downtown master plan, both address corridors within municipal limits that we need to be looking at and providing solutions on how to address the redevelopment of those areas.
That complete. Chair recognizes Councilman McCall.
Thank you. This question is for maybe Ben, just for clarity, or maybe clarity on the motion. So I think this here is the overlay district for East Palmetto Corridor. I think it's your motion, it's Brian's motion, Councilman Braddock's motion to table it to, again, refer it to the Business Development Committee to look at other corridors. Is that, and I know we're not trying to delegate or give up our authority as a full council, but is it legal for us to do that? For us to send it back to a committee for them to review other corridors?
Yes, sir, Councilman. You got a couple of ways you can approach this. You could refer it to a committee, but the general practice in committing the ordinance to the committee requires there be a date certain that you bring it back. You can't just refer it to a committee and have it hang out there forever. So the best practice that I've recommended, or the better practice that I've recommended, is to table the motion. It will remain on the table, so to speak, until the end of this session, which is probably the next election. There's some question as to what constitutes a session of a municipal council, but the motion will lay on the table until the end of this session. So let's say the fall of 2024. Y'all can pull it back off the table at any time and take it back up. In the meantime, it's entirely appropriate for council to, on the record, inform Mr. Moore and his staff that what they want to see in terms of the work of that committee doing, including this East Palmetto Street corridor. That work can be done by the committee. At such time the committee is ready to give a report, they can give their report. You can pull the motion back off the table and move forward.
Okay.
And the matter can be amended at that point. I'm sure there will be an amendment at that point to make everything sort of fit together with the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Any other questions? And that's excellent, and that's so that we would know that procedure in the general public is to know that anything that comes through the city comes through the city council. When the city council receives that information, then the city council, the 7-member board, will designate which organization that should go to. And any council member can request to have it sent to organization, but it has to come from the council. And that's my point of clarity I want us all to understand. And that's state law, and that's procedure, and that's why all 7 of us was elected. So at this time, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, you've heard the motion. You've also heard the explanation throughout council. And he did recommend to have a date. Do y'all have a date? Are y'all?
You don't have to have a
But at least by the end of 2024, though, you say so. Yeah, so the end of the session. Now, but if you want to have one, you can have one, and that's my point. So now I don't know if y'all want to hang it out to 2024, but you don't have to, but you have to that time. So if Chair recognizes Councilman McCall.
Put a date on it on this.
Well, I think
Chair recognizes. Are you finished with that statement, McCall? Now Chair recognizes Pro Tem.
I believe if I understood what Mr. Ziegler said is that the current matter that is currently before us gives the committee the opportunity to work with staff and to develop a comprehensive approach that we don't know how long, but at any point in time that the city council wants to bring it back out, we have the ability to bring it back up at our discretion. So we can recall it, if you will, at any point we want to.
And that is correct. And we also have the option, if we want to put a date on it, you can. So both options are options that we as a council have. So we are not limited as a council, that's your right as a board. If you want, because I'll say like this, if you bring something before the council, and if you want it as a council member to go to a committee, and you wanted it done within 6 months, so if you're doing like how we were saying a study for the organization, you can put a date on it, but you have that option. But most important, this is where we're at. We've got a motion on the table to actually table and have the business committee look at this particular corridor along with the other corridors as expressed from Councilman McCall. Is that correct motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. And I'm going to vote aye since we can do all the corridor.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
can I request from City Manager Osterman that we get the current plan that's in place now for a basis of review? for the
Yes,
other?
sir.
No, the current corridor plan. Overlay.
All right. That completes agenda item number Bill 2023-2022. Next, we have Bill number 2023-23 for a second reading. It's an ordinance to annex Phase 4 of the Grove at Ebenezer, identified as a portion of Florence County Tax Map number 00075-01-221. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that the bill has passed. Next, we have on our agenda Bill number 2023-25 for a second reading. It's an ordinance to repeal and replace portions of Section 3-2 and 3-7 and 3-11 of the Code of Ordinance of the City of Florence entitled Definitions, Public Nuisance, Dangerous vicious animal enforcement, and other matters relating thereto. Do we have a motion and a second so we can hear from our council?
Do we hear on the second reading over here? We hear from a staff member on the second reading?
We can't. We always in this point. Well, do we have a motion? So we have a motion and second. Anytime that we have any ordinance on the book, a staff member or legal advice will always be available. So even during second readings, if there's any questions at any point by the council, we can always ask. So we're not limited just because it's second reading. So while we're doing this, I'm going to ask that our council please come forward to be available at this time. And I do know that at this time, Councilwoman Neesmith Jackson did have a question or concern.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to amend this ordinance to add the following language: the owning, possession, or harboring of any animal which frequently or for continued duration howls, barks, meows, squawks, or makes other sounds which create excessive and unnecessary noise across a residential or commercial real estate property line or within a noise-sensitive area. For the purpose of this chapter, barking dogs shall mean a dog that barks, bays, cries, howls, or makes any other noise continuously or incessantly for a period of 10 minutes, or barks intermittently for 1/2 hour or more to the disturbance of any person at any time of day or night, regardless of whether the dog is physically situated in or upon private property.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Is there a motion? I don't believe there's a motion in a second.
We have a
Well,
motion.
You have had a motion in a second.
Yeah, we have a motion. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so you had a motion.
Yes,
Yes.
I amended it to include that. That was the original reason I got involved in the dog ordinance, because I got complaints of dogs making noise all time or excessively. So that was the real reason I got involved on this ordinance, and it was supposed to be included since day one, and unfortunately Jim failed to put this in or include it. So I had to make the motion today to amend it to include this.
So what we have now, Council, is a motion to amend, because we had a motion and a second so we could hear for this second reading, and she wants to amend this as stated now. So that's where we're now, but we need a second.
Just to help our clerk, who's trying to keep notes. The original motion and second were made by who?
I second.
Who Who was our original?
I thought you made it.
Well, both of y'all.
Well, we both made it. Some moved. We both some moved.
Okay.
So who's going to be originator for the record?
I'm the original.
Councilman. Okay, and this second, and that's for the original motion.
that's the original
and now Councilwoman Nee Smith Jackson wants to amend this motion of what we have here.
Right, and may I say, Madam
Yes.
Mayor, that I understand that there's someone here to speak.
Yes, sir, it is.
And I would, I don't think it hurts to amend the matter at this point before Ms. Boswell speaks. But I know she is going to request that a deferral of the second reading, and so I don't know whether you want to wait and amend on second reading or just amend it.
Well, since you're standing counsel, that's one of the things I was going to ask you. We have this amendment here. So with her doing a motion right now to amend, I know if we do a second, we'll have that for the amendment. Then we can actually have discussion, have her, Ms. Boswell speak.
Right. I think that's a way. There is one other change.
Yes, sir.
Madam Mayor, and if I could tell you about it, I believe we've discussed it already. I just want to, maybe that could be added to the amendment. In Section 11, under enforcement of dangerous animal regulations, the language concerning, I think it's D, concerning putting a dangerous animal down, an animal that persistently or continuously presents a danger. The original language we had said that it has to be reviewed by a judge. Judge can order it. It says the judge, we had the judge must. The appropriate language from the state statute is may. And of course, the judge has to have discretion to make the findings. He has to be able to define that there's a persistent threat and then make that determination. So it should say, instead of saying must, it should say may. And I want to offer that as a correction as well.
Councilwoman, do you accept that amendment to your amendment, to add to your amendment?
Yes, that's fine.
All right, so we have an amendment, a motion to amend on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. At this time, I'm going to call for a discussion, and we do have Ms. Jane Barr.
Madam Mayor, I would vote on the amendment.
Yes.
And then go back to the main motion and have Ms. Boswell.
Okay.
Just a question.
This one moment. I know. Okay. So right now we have a motion to amend with a second, and we can move forward with that. First, we have a motion and a second. So I'm gonna call for discussion on this amendment.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So that's what we need to do now. So at this point, I'm calling for discussion, and we had two hands that go up. I know Councilman Bradley, you raised your, but you was okay.
I was just seconding.
Okay, so we'll recognize Councilwoman Barnes and our pro tem after and I'll go back in order. I'll get him. Okay, Councilwoman Barnes.
I just want clarity. Are we talking about finding somebody because their dog barks or their cat meows?
Inaccessibly, yeah. Because
so my question is it on the record now barking you may not like, but are we having, I guess this is new to me, we're having problems because cats are meowing and dogs are barking?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes.
Okay. So at this,
because it just blew me away. That's kind of out there.
Yeah.
all right. And so at this time, is that your question, Councilwoman Barnes?
Yeah, I guess right now.
Okay. And so the answer now, Councilwoman Nee Smith Jackson, you're saying there are complaints or concerns. Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting them. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you.
That's why I started this.
Yes, ma'am. So next we have, does that complete for you, Councilwoman Barnes? Next, I will recognize Pro Tem DeBay.
Historically, when we have ordinances and we have an opportunity to vote on it, even if there's an amendment, it has been something that historically we have had that in writing ahead of time before the council meeting and have had a chance to look it over. I am very uncomfortable in voting on something that we have not had a chance to look at and to study, and being asked to, on the fly, on second reading, to make an amendment to something that we have not had a chance to look at, whether it's this amendment to this ordinance or some other ordinance. So as a policy, as a practice, I think it is a bad practice on our part as city council to be a significant, I mean, if it's a one-word amendment or something, that's a different story. But this is adding a whole section in. And I think out of fairness to other council members, I think it would be a best practice for us to have a chance to do that. So I'm in favor of deferring it to allow for us to have an opportunity to look at it. My question is, would it be appropriate for me to make a motion to defer now, to have this matter deferred, to give us more time to look at the amendment as well as the rest of it? And that's a question to you, Mr. Siegel.
I would think if you wanted to defer, there's now a motion to amend pending. It's been moved and seconded. I think this is getting pretty deep into the procedural weeds.
I'm just uncomfortable voting on an amendment, yes or no, until I've had a chance to
That's
review
why I
it.
suggested that perhaps the deferral be considered first.
Yes.
So you could then make this amendment on second reading as deferred.
Yes. So if it would work for you, Councilwoman, let's have a vote on the motion to defer, and then we can have either we defer it or we don't, and then if it's deferred, then we have time to look at that language that's presented, and that we all have an opportunity to do. Would you be willing to let me have the vote on the motion to defer first?
Before communication point, parliamentary clarification. Right now we have an amendment on there. We have a second. We're in the midst of discussion.
Yes, ma'am.
Now there are other council members who want to have a discussion. Do we give them the opportunity to add the discussion before we consider
the debate is on the amendment. So debate on the amendment is appropriate at this time.
So if at this point we've got that question for deferral motion,
No, ma'am, I don't think Councilman Jabali hadn't made a motion to defer at this point.
Well, I had a question first about that.
He had a question.
And so, following up on your suggestion, I'm asking if we could have a vote on the motion to defer.
The appropriate action, if Councilman Smith Jackson wanted to do, is to withdraw her motion. And then you could decide on the deferral. And if you decide to defer it, then whatever changes might come out of the deferral, the meeting of the committee, then it can come back for second reading at a subsequent meeting and then be voted on that.
Okay, so we have, did that complete?
Yes, so I guess the question is now, would you be willing to withdraw your motion to amend to allow for a vote on the motion to defer?
Unfortunately, I have been working on this for many, many months, and I have voters that are depending and waiting on this to pass. Of course, we've had dog situations. I'm just talking to somebody this week, and their children are being chased riding bicycles, and that's in Richmond Hills. Just last week, kids riding bicycles are being chased by dogs, and we have to do something now. And it's unfortunate that this was the first thing that I included in our subcommittee meeting. Again, this was the original reason I got involved, because my voters, and I understood my voters because I live beside neighbors with dogs on each side. One is on the inside, the other one is on the outside. And I'm gonna tell you, the dog barks, howls, something o'clock in the morning, all day, all night, and it is bothersome, and it does wake me. I've never decided to call or anything, but there is some things that needs to be done. And so even with us doing this last month, I had the voter reach out to me again saying I didn't see the times in it. What is going on? Because there is problems, whether you know it or not, or whether people live beside dogs or don't. There is problems in our city, and our voters are dependent on us to make these decisions, these revisions, and these policies so that they can feel safe and comfortable in their own homes. I told them that I put it on there, and hopefully it should pass today, and they were excited about that because, again, we had people waiting on these laws for a long, long time, and nobody refused to stand up and make any changes. I've done that, done the research, and I think as a council, we need to go ahead and pass something so that our voters and our constituents will feel safer in the city of Florence. Again, we're going towards a pedestrian-friendly city. We understand that dogs don't know the laws or the rules, and it's people that are responsible for protecting their dogs along with the rest of the public. So I'm asking everyone to please, let's not put this off any longer, because we have people watching us and expecting us, and they don't feel like it should take this long to decide or make changes to a law that needs to be changed.
Well,
So at this point,
excuse me, Madam Mayor, this isn't, I was following up with her on this one point. So in response to the request that, you know, I had wished that you would, to allow us time to look at this amendment the way you did, but because you're not willing to do that, then I'm going to move to, can I move to defer at this time, or do I need to wait?
No.
When would that need to be?
Point of order.
After the vote on the amendment.
Okay.
Yes, and point of order, procedure manner. Each council member has the opportunity to speak 2 times on the items for 10 minutes. And so at this time, we're in discussion, and I need to recognize Councilman Smith for a first-time response doing this. And after that, we'll go back.
My hand was up first.
Yep, yours, we go in order. You spoke, Councilman Jadreda just spoke. Councilman Smith has requested for the first time, so he needs to speak at this time. Then Councilman McCall hasn't spoken, so he'll be acknowledged. And then anyone who had spoken already, then you can come back and speak a second time on it.
So I just have a question on that.
No, point
of
order. No point of order. And
I've got a
procedure.
question
No,
on
ma'am.
the fact
No, ma'am.
they
Point
raised
of
their
order.
hand after.
No. Point of order. You may not have, they had already raised their hand. And so I've already gotten them. So when I'm watching to see who's spoken. So next to speak is Councilman Smith. Go ahead, Councilman Smith.
For Councilwoman, for clarity, in your amendment, where did that fit? What section was that? Did that fit in? Nuisance. Okay, that's what my question was. I just want to make sure.
Next, Councilman McCall for his first response.
Okay. I remember when I first got on council, and I tried to do this a couple of times. I think I got beat down both times, and it was. I think it's just a professional courtesy, just allowing. And I got it. I mean, I felt a little slighted, but I mean, professional courtesy is if there's a piece you want to add to the ordinance, at least provide it like 24 hours beforehand, so having it writing. Again, I want to support you in getting this thing passed. I think I want to first commend you on that. You have been one of the people fighting real hard on this, you along with, as well as Councilman Braddock and Councilman Smith, who was on that committee. I would have hoped it would have came out originally on the when the ordinance first came out. We'd have been done at this point. I didn't know of what was in and what was out. I thought when we voted on the first time that was it. I didn't know that something was left out. I just think, I respect Councilwoman Smith Jackson, just a little professional courtesy and just allowing everyone to see it beforehand. Again, it happened.
For it, I will. I'm sorry, I gave you the bin.
Councilwoman, please, at this time.
It happened to me twice too, and both times I was like, but then kind of moving forward, I kind of did that. So I think for the sake of everybody, I think you have support to get it done. But I just think people want to see it in writing beforehand, and where is that in the statute before making that decision. I don't think no one want to have it come back and they're trying to explain why they voted on something, and then they can say, well, I don't recall it happening. So I just think, again, I think we're trying to do the right thing. I know you've been working hard on it. Again, I want to commend you on the work you've been doing on that specific piece. But I just think, let us look at it first. If we have to call a special meeting to get it passed, I'm fine with that too. But let's at least give it to us in writing beforehand so we can have it. The vote on it. So I would be in favor of you withdrawing the motion so it can be a lot easier for everybody. So we have to vote on deferment. So thank you.
Now, Councilwoman Barnes.
I just had the question about a noise ordinance when she was saying barking and meowing, and the different levels. Is there any way that it could come back on us that we are talking about finding or someone because their dog is making a noise, and what level is the noise? Like we have noise ordinance. So I was trying to see if that would,
Yeah, I mean, in the noise ordinance, it's you can hear it from a certain proximity. You know, if you're 100 feet away, or I can't cite off the top of my head what's in the noise ordinance, but I believe the language that you read, it has to be audible from a reasonable distance. It can't be if you got your head up against the door of somebody's house, you can hear the dog barking. It's if you're in the house next door, you can hear it barking, and it's barking incessant.
and so I wanted to make, because I am 100% behind Councilwoman Jackson with protecting our community. However, I teeter when you start saying meowing and barking of abuse of power. And that we need to make sure that we don't cross that line because we have, and so I just wanted to make sure with the noise ordinance.
Well, and this is a provision, and I've worked with Councilwoman Jackson on this, Neesmith Jackson. This is a provision that came out of another. She came back and said we need to put something on barking in the ordinance. So we did research and found another jurisdiction that has what she's looking for. So
Several. And it's not.
Chair recognizes Councilman Smith Jackson.
And it's not just barking or cats meowing. It's a certain amount of time. You can't sleep if a dog barking all night. You can't. You can't sleep if there's a dog barking at certain. And even our noise ordinance has certain times, right? And it has a limit of time, correct? So it's no different from any other thing. It's just the dogs adding it to a nuisance.
Chair recognizes Pro Tem, and I do want to acknowledge again, y'all, that we do have Ms. Jane Boswell here. Do y'all want to proceed with the question, or do you want to hear from? Okay, so if there's no other questions, let's please recognize Ms. Boswell. Will you please come forward, please?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come forward and talk with you today. I know that
the mic is Boswell.
I know that you know that my heart is animals, but I will say that through the years, the experiences that I've had have shown me that the connection between people and animals is a very important part of not only the individual but also the community. And it speaks a lot of times to compassion and kindness and those kinds of characteristics. At the first reading, Councilman Jamali and Mayor Irvin, and I thank you for that, requested that I be included in the discussion before the second reading of this ordinance. And I have not been included in a discussion, and I would respectfully ask that we delay this second reading until that opportunity comes forward. I would really appreciate that.
Thank you, Ms. Boswell. At this time, we do have a motion and a second on the floor, but we have the first time response from Councilman Braddock. Councilman Braddock.
I think a potential way to move forward with some prudence is I know that Councilwoman Jackson does not want this missed in the ordinance again, especially for review. So I think that it would be prudent for us to pass the amendment and then defer the complete ordinance, but at least making sure that we don't, it doesn't slip through the cracks, the second time, and then give us an opportunity to hear input from someone who served the community in this regard for several years.
Okay. Before I go to Councilwoman, I do want to acknowledge with parliamentary. So, Councilman, you're actually requesting that we vote on the amendment as read with the second. So we'll pass, if that amendment passes, that would be amending our original second reading. Okay. And then you're going to ask that with this second reading as amended that we do.
You wouldn't be given a second reading, you'd just be amending what was given first reading, and then it would be teed up for second reading if either today or if you decide to defer it.
That was going to be my question. If we amended it today,
you can come back and amend it even further.
Okay, for clarification for the council. So if we vote on this amendment, the amendment passes. Therefore, that amendment would now become what we will be voting on as voted. And so you're saying once we've done that, though, and we've got this amendment included here, we can then, if we want to, take that reading and defer it to an appointed time?
Yes, ma'am. You could defer defer second reading until the next meeting.
We could defer it to like next month's reading. And that's just a point of clarification I want y'all to all understand. Chair recognizes Councilwoman E. Smith Jackson.
Yes, I want to start off by saying thank you so much, Ms. Jane, for coming here and giving your input. And I think what Mayor Pro Tem said was to give you a copy and to look over it if you have any input. We had already, unfortunately, done the meeting and did the resolution, but I will go ahead this time and defer it until, but I don't want to do it till next month because I have people waiting on this ordinance, and it has been slipping through this council for a very long time. So if we can do another meeting, I'll be satisfied with that. That gives Ms. Jane an opportunity to get with council, with the committee if she likes, and we just do this at another reading, hopefully before the next month.
Okay, and I do want to have a point of clarification that when it comes to this month, the end of this month, that last week, that the Municipal Association will be meeting. So we would not be to meet at the end portion of this meeting. And just for prudence sake, I don't know how y'all schedules are going to go in there, and I don't know if the council want to do a special meeting before the August meeting. I think that's going to be maybe August the 14th. Can we? What is that? Let me check the date on that. Let me check the council before we.
Point of information.
Well, I've got a question on it. Let's get this clarified first, so we can keep some organization to the meeting. Okay, so the next scheduled meeting would be August the 14th. So while we're contemplating that, now Chair recognizes Councilman McCall.
And I guess we all in the weeds at this point. Is it possible for us to? Can we have a vote at the Municipal Association or in Greenville? I mean, all you do is notify the media, and there's 4 of us there. All right, is that possible?
I won't be there.
I'm gonna have to put. Let's clarify this, Council. We have procedures, and things should always be done decent in order. And matter of fact, we have a motion on here now. The councilwoman, our parliamentarians told us we can vote on this amendment, and then we can actually go ahead and we can do it next month, our special reading. And is it so pressing that we need to call a special meeting? Because right now we have our animal control who are in place. They still can handle those situations in between. And so I would just ask, let's first go ahead and let's vote on this amendment. What are we going to do? We have a motion and a second to amend the bill as stated. So we have to have discussion. Are y'all ready for the question on the amendment? Not on the passing of, but on the amendment. Are you ready for the question? Yes, sir.
Maybe I misunderstood, but it was my understanding that you were going to agree to the deferral, even though it was not what you had initially thought about, and that we could then come back and have this matter heard in its entirety at the next meeting. Is that right?
I agreed with Councilman Braddock to add the amendment and then defer the entire thing.
And as stated, that is why I stated we have an amendment on the floor. What we're voting on is amendment to amend the ordinance on here. Once we've done that, that would be what we'll be able to then defer that to the next reading.
Okay. I got
so,
question.
Chair,
you can add.
Chair,
Thank you, Madam. Because so what you're saying is for us to vote on what you've just put forward. That's what you're saying. Even though we don't understand it, you're asking us to vote for it and against it. Even though we don't understand it. And then we come back later and do what?
Okay. Where we're at now, we have an amendment on the floor. If we vote to amend as read, that would be added to this ordinance. Then that ordinance as amended will be then sent back out to the council. Council can look at that amended ordinance. So when we come back to the next scheduled meeting, If you do not like that in there, then the council can amend to have it, the council can then vote to either support it as it is presented to us, or we can make another amendment. And that's just with any ordinance. You can correct me, parliamentary, if anything differently. So that is where we're at. Where we're at now is voting on the amendment. So we have the question, we have a motion and a second. We had discussion. I'm ready for questions. Can someone call for the question? Someone call for the question?
Call for the question. Okay,
all those in favor of the amendment, please signify by raising your hand so I can see your hand for the amendment. Okay, so we have 5 supporting the amendment, correct?
Yes.
Any opposed to the amendment, please raise your hand so we can see. So we have 2. The amendment has passed with a total of 5 to 2 vote. So now we have the bill in its amended form. So now we can actually go ahead now and have a vote to defer if they...
Someone would have to move to
Motion to defer.
Second.
So we have a motion by Councilman Braddock and a second by Councilman Smith to defer the motion. And we have that. We have a question. So
Yeah, just for the record, the reason I voted against the amendment has nothing to do with the amendment itself. It's just, whenever a section like that, I just think it's best that it be.
Question.
So I just wanted it to be understood that that's the reason why I voted against it, that I think it's a best practice that it be sent out ahead of
Going
time.
forward, it will, but no
All right.
explanation.
And
needed.
Thank you.
And
But I also want to just say,
control.
I also just want to say thank you for what you've done, your passion on this. It's a very important ordinance. I'm totally in favor of us doing what we need to do to correct this. And you and I have had extensive conversations on that. So I just wanted to make it clear on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And right now we have a motion and a second to defer. Now, without any assumption being this deferral will be to next month's meeting, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the motion and the second is to defer the second reading of this bill to our August meeting. All those in favor signify by raising your hand so I can have, okay, so we have, all right, any of those opposed, like sign, raise your hand. Okay, so let it reflect that we have a 6-1 passage of this bill. And I do want to reiterate, thank the council for being able to discuss that in such an organized manner. And as was stated, I would hope that we all would be sure that what we stated here, making sure every council member have the information before we voted on it, please let that go across the board.
Okay.
Everyone. All right.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. So next we were going to our introduction of ordinance. And first we have ordinance is bill number 2023-26, which is a first reading. But this particular ordinance, if so choose, it can be discussed in executive session. So
Yes.
I make a motion that we discuss this item in
Second.
executive session.
Second.
okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And if there's no objection, we have bill number 2023-27 for a first reading, but this bill is contingent upon the bill that's presented before. Do we have a motion that we also,
Second.
so we have a motion and a second that we'll take this bill up after executive session for bill number 2023-26. Any further discussion? Hear none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, and opposed, like sign. So items A and B will be taken up in the executive session. Next, we have bill number 2023-28 for a first reading. It's an ordinance to amend the budget of the city of Florence, South Carolina for the fiscal year beginning July the 1st of 2022, ending June the 30th, 2023. Do we have a motion and a second? And
So moved.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. And just so the council will be clear, that this particular reading is because of the $10,000 that we just received. But we do have Kevin Rollison here if you have any questions. Any question for Mr. Rollison? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that bill number 2023-28 has passed first reading. Next, we have bill number 2023-29 for first reading. It's an ordinance to abandon a portion of the sewer line and easement located on private property at 1411 Gulf Terrace Boulevard, identified as Florence County Tax Map Number 001-01-01-470. And do we have a motion? Do we have a second? So we have a motion and a second. And at this time, we can hear from Mr. Clint Moore.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. This is an ordinance to abandon a portion of sewer line, an easement located on private property at 1411 Gulf Terrace Boulevard. I'll bring the map up. The existing sewer line is highlighted in the green area. That's the original easement. And again, this property is located outside of city limits. So the Florence County had approved the plans, the site plan, building plans, and unknowingly allowed for a residential structure to be built on top of our existing sewer line. So this was discovered during the sale of the property, and in working with the builder and developer, he has relocated the sewer line, which is highlighted within this gray area. So what we are doing, we have already accepted, and I believe they're currently recording the new easement, which is highlighted in gray there. But we are required, as part of state law, that City Council release any rights to property. So we have to take this through City Council to remove the easement on the original easement. And that concludes staff's report.
Any questions?
I have a
Chair
question.
recognizes Councilman McCall.
Is there a staff? I know this didn't go through planning commission. I think you're trying to.
That's right.
expedite it.
That's right. We're trying to, in an effort to help the developer sell the property pretty quickly. This will be held at planning commission tomorrow night, and then we will update the staff report for second and final reading next month.
But is there a staff? I didn't see a staff recommendation. Is there one?
Yes, we recommend the easement to be.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Let it reflect that the bill has passed first reading. Next, we'll enter into our resolution. And our next item is Resolution 2023-35. It's a resolution and conditional grant agreement for development location within an overlay district. If there's no objection, this item will be taken up in executive session. Next, we have report to council for appointments to boards and commission. And from that, we'll hear from Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. We have a number of boards that have vacancies or expired terms. We'll first start with our Accommodations Advisory Tax Committee. We have one expired term on said committee. That falls to Councilman McCall. We have seeking reappointment, Mr. Chad Patterson. There are no other applicants.
Chair recognizes Councilman McCall for appointment.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to reappoint Mr. Champion.
Okay. Councilman McCall's motion to have Mr. Chad Patterson reappointed. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that Mr. Patterson has been reappointed. Thank you, Councilman.
Our next board is our Planning Commission. There are two vacancies. It should be noted that one of the vacancies is Ms. Dorothy Hines. Ms. Hines has served for 33 years on the Planning Commission. She said thank you very much for all those years of service, and she appreciates the time on that board.
And
but no, and we have council members making nominations, Madam Mayor and Councilwoman Neesmith Jackson. We have applicants Deanna Adams, Eric Douglas, Angela Foster, Michael Abbott, and Xavier Sams. Two of those should be Michael Abbott and Xavier Sams came in late, so you should have that on your desk.
All right, and I do want to acknowledge as we're proceeding, I asked Scotty to be sure to acknowledge Ms. Hines, and at a future date, I would like to recognize her maybe with a proclamation or a resolution. And Ms. Hines has been a dedicated community member. She's also president of the Greater William Heights Community Association. She's also a retired nursing executive as well. So for our general public, I would like to thank Ms. Hine for her service. And she did that job serving with us as well as being a nursing director. So she's truly dedicated to our community. So to Ms. Hines and to her family, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And next, we have appointments. And at this time, I would like to appoint for the City Planning Commission, Ms. Xavier Sams. That's my motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed, like sign. Please let the record reflect that Ms. Sams has been appointed to the City of Florence Planning Commission. Thank you. And next we have appointment to be done by Councilwoman Neesmith Jackson.
I would like to defer my appointment at this time.
Okay. Councilwoman will be deferring her appointment at this time. All right.
Our next board is our Board of Zoning and Appeals. We have 3 expired terms and 1 vacancy. Seeking reappointment is Mr. Ruben Chico, Miriam James Singley, Deborah Moses. We have 2 new applicants, Charles Ziplock and Jermaine Nowlin. First making nomination is Councilman Smith.
Chair recognizes Councilman Smith.
I'm defer at this time.
Councilman Smith will defer.
Next, we have Councilman Braddock.
Councilman Braddock is recognized.
Yeah, I'm going to defer on that. Madam Mayor, I have a question about
Yes, sir.
the previous one. There's 2 applicants for the planning with the same address. Is it allowed for 2 people to have the same address, or is that a
A typo got to be.
typo? Xavier Sams and Desmond Gardner?
That's to the
Oh.
boards.
Yeah, that's what I got.
Yes.
One is for the Civic Center.
They're
One
2
is for
different
planning.
appointments.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. I apologize.
Okay. All right. So that point has been clarified. Thank you to Councilman Braddock. And Councilman Braddock will be deferring that appointment. So next we will have
Mayor Pro Tem Jabali.
Chair recognizes Pro Tem.
I would nominate Charlie Ipock to the Board of Zoning Appeals, particularly on recommendation from staff.
So Charlie IHOP has been recommended, a motion by Councilman Pro Tem. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Hearing any discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of Mr. IHOP, please say aye. Aye. And opposed, like sign. Hearing none, in the majority, we have now appointed Mr. IHOP to the City of Florence Board of Zoning and Appeal. Thank you, Councilman.
Next, have Councilwoman Barnes.
I'd like to do Jermaine Nowlin.
Okay. Councilwoman has nominated motion for Mr. Jermaine Nowlin. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Mr. Jermaine Nowlin, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that Mr. Nowlin has been appointed to the board. Thank you.
Our next board is our Florence Center Commission. We have 2 vacancies on the board. We have seeking reappointment Mr. Ron Roberts, applicant Sonietta Cooper, James Hicks, Desmond Garner. And seeking council members making nominations starts with Councilwoman Barnes.
Chair recognizes Councilman Barnes. Councilwoman Barnes.
I'd like to defer.
Councilwoman has deferred. Next.
Next is Councilman McCall.
I'd like to appoint Desmond Gardner.
Okay. Councilman has nominated a motion for Mr. Desmond Gardner to be appointed. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that Mr. Gardner has been appointed to the Florence Center Board. Thank you, Councilman, for that appointment.
Our next board is our Design Review Board. We have 2 expired terms on the Design Review Board. There are special qualifications for this board. Making nominations, Mayor Irving and Neesmith. We have seeking reappointment is Jamie Carston. He's qualified in finance and commercial residential real property, and Cal Gunner, who's a commercial general contractor. There are no new applicants.
Okay.
Again, starting with Mayor.
I would reappoint Mr. Jamie Carston. That's my motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Let the record reflect that Mr. Costin has been reappointed.
Next, we have Councilwoman Neesmith Jackson.
I will defer on the design review board at this time.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman has deferred. Okay.
Our next board is our Construction and Maintenance Board of Adjustments and Appeal. There are 4 expired terms. They are special requirements of mechanical contractor, plumbing contractor, electrical contractor, and a general contractor. Seeking reappointment, Mr. Benjamin Banks, Warner Jacob, James Cooper Jr., and Casey Gunner. Mayor, according to our bylaws, the Mayor Irving will make all appointments to this board.
Okay. It is my motion, and I will make it inclusively since all applicants have requested to be reappointed. It is my motion that Mr. Benjamin Blanks be reappointed to the mechanical contractor, and Mr. Warner Jacob be reappointed to plumbing contractor, and that Mr. James Cooper Jr. be reappointed to electrical contractor, and that Casey Gunter be reappointed to general contractor. That's my motion. Do we have a second? So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that those have been reappointed unanimously. Thank you, Council.
Next, we have a Housing Authority Board. There are 3 expired terms and 1 vacancy. Seeking reappointment, Gerard Moultrie, Rosa Mullins, Linda Williams. We have a number of applicants, about 14 others seeking application. Our first making nomination is Mayor Irving to appoint the Resident Commission.
Give me a moment, y'all, to flip all these papers, trying to keep up all our appointments here. And we do have 3 who have applied to the position of resident. And I will acknowledge that what I did was, I think the general public understood that there has been some ongoing concerns that has been being addressed at the Housing Authority. So I elected not to appoint anyone at that time in order to give time for the commission itself to clarify their direction. Upon looking at the candidates, we've had one that applied earlier, and I would love to have more time at times to interact with the clients to get more opinion from them. But based on the submission date of the original individual, because also of her term that she's been here, I will appoint Ms. May Lily Holmes Lau. That's my recommendation for the resident to serve on the Housing Authority Board. That's my motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Let the record reflect that Ms. May Lily Holmes Lau will be the individual representing the residents. Thank you, Council. Next.
Our next appointment falls to Councilman Smith.
I'm going to defer it this time.
Thank you, Councilman.
Next appointment falls to Councilman Braddock.
Defer.
Thank you, Councilman.
And our final appointment falls to Mayor Pro Tem Jabali.
Defer.
Thank you, Pro Tem.
Parks and Beautification Commission, there are 3 expired terms. We have Councilwoman Barnes, McCall, and Irving. Seeking reappointment, Synovia Anarco, Simon Lee, and Walter Salinger. We have new applicants, Christopher Filial, Paula Lentz, and Hughes Page. We start with Councilman Barnes.
Give me those reappointments again.
Synovia.
I tell you what, I'll defer. Let me look into that.
And I would defer as well.
And I will reappoint Ms. Synovia Arno. Is that correct, Scotty, how we pronounce that?
I'm not sure, but
it would be my motion to reappoint her. That's my motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed, like sign. Let the record reflect that Ms. Synovia has been reappointed. Thank you.
we have 2 expired terms on our Aesthetic Advisory Committee. James Hicks and Letitia Jackson. We have one applicant, new applicant, Michael Henderson. We start with Councilwoman Neesmith Jackson.
I am going to defer at this time.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Next, we have Councilman Smith.
I'm gonna defer it this time.
Thank you, Councilman.
We have our Resilience and Sustainability Advisory Committee. We have 3 expired terms on this committee. We have Lisa Pike, Lauren Piner, and Loretta Slater, all seeking reappointment. We have no new applicants. Falls to Councilman Bright.
I will appoint Ms. Loretta Slater.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the opposed like sign. Let it reflect that Ms. Slater has been reappointed.
Next, Pro Tem Jabali.
Yeah, I'll reappoint Lisa Pike.
Ms.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Ms. Pike, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed like sign. Please let it reflect that Ms. Pike has been reappointed. Thank you, Pro Tem.
And finally, we have Councilwoman Barnes.
And I'll get the last one.
And that's Ms.
Lauren
Piner.
Piner.
That's your motion. Okay, Councilwoman has a motion to reappoint Ms. Piner. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed like sign. Let it reflect that Ms. Piner has been reappointed. Thank you, Council.
Our final board is our Public Safety Citizens Review Board. We have 1 expired term and 1 vacancy. You must be 21 years old to serve on this board. Seeking reappointment is Whitey Snowden. We do not have any other applicants at this time. Making nominations first is Councilman McCall.
I will reappoint Mr. Snow. Well, point of clarification on this one before I reappoint, make a nomination reappoint. Do we know whether or not they completed the training necessary for that board? I know they have to assist
Yeah, I
in
think
training.
this one has.
Did he? I don't want to start over.
He
did.
started the process.
Okay. Well, I make a motion to reappoint Mr. Snowden.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second in discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed like sign. Let it reflect that Mr. Snowden has been reappointed.
Next is Mayor Irving. We do not have any other applicants.
At this time, I'll defer, and I would ask that the public please go to the city of Florence, and if you so desire, please consider serving on the Public Safety Citizen Review, and especially for any citizen who has concerns about the community. This would be a great place for you to be there, to be that intermediate between the public and the council. So thank you.
That concludes that report.
Thank you. At this time, we have moved forward with our reports. As mayor, I would just simply like to state that we've seen a lot of growth and development through Florence. We've just noted that we've got the Florence Behavioral Hub that's coming to us as well. And also, I do want to acknowledge that this past weekend, we hosted the first PD Youth Initiative Day. And I'm greatly pleased to say that they hadn't got the final count yet, but children started actually coming over before setup was completed. So we had a great attendance, and I can pretty well, just basically for numbers, I know that we exceeded over 200 young people being there. And there will be a report given later, but I do want to thank the sponsors who came forth so strongly to support this. And I won't name all the vendors because I don't want to miss any at this time. But I do want to state that we had great business support. We had support from the various levels of our educational system there as well. We had live entertainment. We had a live performance that was there. I do want to acknowledge, though, that the mayor of Lake City, Ms. Yamika Robinson, was one of the co-chairperson who was there, and also mayor, actually the council member from Mullins, Mr. Mayo Phillips as well. So I would like to especially thank these elected officials who was aboard to help to organize this. But I do want to also thank the council members who came forward this weekend to support our young people, and also the state legislators who was there. I think the whole of the community was very pleased, and there were already requests of being sure that this will be done again. It will be hosted every year, the second Saturday in July, and that's by city resolution. That resolution was passed back in 2021 by this council. So this council, thank you for supporting our youth to make sure that we afford opportunity for them. I greatly appreciate that. And like I said, they will be coming forth to talk to us at a later date. But there are a lot of other good things that's going on, but I do want to just specifically acknowledge that and thank those partners, and know that our partners, you will be acknowledged in a greater way in the future. And I'm not sure, but the Pro Tem may address this as well. I do want to acknowledge that the Florence Airport Commission, we have one of the commissioners actually in the back of our room right now from the Florence Airport Commission, Mr. Robert Ware. So Mr. Ware, thank you for being here. I want to acknowledge the Airport Commission for the great work that they're doing to actually advance our airport here. So they've went out and sought partnership and support, and the Pro Tem brought a letter here last month to seek support there. So just know that as a whole, the city is working hard to work together to advance the city. And as the mayor, I'm greatly appreciative to our citizens, but also to our city staff, and most importantly to our elected official, our city council, all that you're doing individually and collectively as a group to further our city. And that concludes my report. Simply want to say thank you. Next, we will proceed to our committee reports, and I will ask the chair of the Business Development Committee to please give us a report.
Thank you. On June 15, the Business Development Committee met. Myself, along with Councilman Braddock and Councilwoman Barnes, Mr. Moore and Mr. Hemingway were there as well. We had an update on the Carolina Theater project. We did receive bids on that, but unfortunately the cost for the renovations that we were hoping for exceeded the amount available. So as I understand it, conversations are being had between city staff and the low bidder to see what we can do to enter into some kind of agreement to move forward on that. And I expect we'll hear more about that at our next Business Development Committee meeting. We also are planning at that meeting to, we can schedule it, to have a walkthrough of the NOFA building over at 127 West Evans, and which, if you all will recall, Mr. Robert Lewis and his group out of Columbia are scheduled to do the renovations and upfitting of that building, and we look forward to doing a walkthrough of that. Personally, I can attest to the daily ongoing progress of Project Urban Square, as my office is right there next to the pounding of the pillars for the footings of the parking deck, and they are coming along just wonderfully, I can assure you. On a daily basis, those footings are being pounded into the ground. Mr. Moore, thank you for smiling as my office shakes every time that whole pounding takes place. But no, it's exciting to see it happen, and we look forward to continued progress on that score. We also had a conversation about the different corridors and the desire to try to work comprehensively, and thank you for council for referring the matter to us so that we can work with Mr. Moore and staff on how we can approach these corridors in a comprehensive way in conjunction with the comprehensive plan. So we look forward to getting started on that right away, and I believe we'll be receiving some specific information at our upcoming next couple of committee meetings where we can really roll up our sleeves and get to work on that. So thank you so much for that. And then we just had basic conversations about other specific businesses, but no action was taken. Anything further, Councilman Braddock, Councilman Barnes? That's our report.
Thank you for that report. Next, we'll have a report from the chair of our Community Development Committee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We met, our committee consists of Councilman McCall and Councilwoman Jackson, Neesmith Jackson, and we met on, I can't remember the date, but we met and we had a update on our neighborhood revitalization and our CDBG funds and how that was going. They told us about the phases going on in East Florence, West Florence, and I don't want to. I'm hesitating because I don't want to go through all of this. They are working and it is going well. We have a number of homes that have been addressed. We've had weatherization and projects that are underway. We also have rehabs and demos and demolitions. We discussed the funding that would be going to our Florence Neighborhood Works Corporation. So we were updated on that. However, we still have not yet. We were excited. We thought that we had gotten an employee, but unfortunately, we have not secured that as of yet. But I think that would. Oh, the police came. That was a fabulous report. They were able to tell us, because you know I'm always saying, let's clean up our neighborhoods with the crime, and so I thank them. They came and gave us a great report. Am I leaving anything else out? Okay, that's it. I try to make it brief and short.
All right.
Y'all do likewise.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman. Next, we have a report from the chair from our Marketing and Public Relationship Committee.
All right, we met on June 21st. Mayor Pro Tem and also Councilman Smith. We met, we talked about, one of the things I had on the agenda was highlighting small businesses. We talked about the chamber and how the chamber and the city partnered to do small businesses. The only thing I know about that, a lot of small businesses are not registered with the chamber, so still trying to find a way to do that without folks feeling a little left out, and why you didn't appoint me and all that kind of stuff is we don't want that. So trying to find a fair and equitable way to really support our small businesses that have survived, and I'm really talking about mom and pop businesses that have survived COVID, that are still here, that are still serving in our community. We definitely want to let them know that we appreciate them. Small businesses make up 99% of our economy, so we definitely want to award them and let them know we do appreciate their continuous service to our communities. Small mom and pop business are really the culture of our neighborhoods, and they really stand out, and we appreciate them for everything they do. So we talked about small business highlights, spotlights, what we can do with that. We talked about the annexation plan, and we still have the survey going on. We welcome and we encourage everyone to fill out this communication survey. We need to know how we can communicate with you. So please take a second or two to fill out the communication survey. I have been sharing it. I've actually dropped off some paper copies with a lot of my seniors. I'm gonna go back and pick them up, but our goal is to ensure that everybody who lives in the city, at least a large part of them, and I know we got a report in the bulk of the applications or the people that were doing the survey was older people. So we need young participation in this survey. We need to know how young people communicate, how they want to receive information. So that is going on to July 28th. I know they are putting the survey into the water bills and encouraging folks to do the many events that we have. Of course, we want to make sure that we take the survey and encourage folks to fill out that survey. And I think that concludes my report. We're going to start doing more awareness. A lot of things that goes on in a lot of miseducation, especially with city roads, state roads, who the roads belong to, why y'all not fixing these roads, y'all collect tax, and I think there's a lot of information that needs to go out into our community on how this works. Though we have City U that shows, that people can go through the process and understand, is still awareness that we need to get out to our communities, because a lot of them do not understand how the city works, who does what, who's responsible for what, and especially when it comes to the roads. So want to kind of do an awareness with that coming up really soon, to let people know how you know if you live on the city road, state road, county road, whatever. Just so we can educate and hopefully get more community engagement and involvement. And that concludes my report for the Marketing and Publications.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Next, we have a report from the Chair for the Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. We met on June 28th this year. A part of the committee, of the Finance Committee, is as myself, Brian Braddock, and Councilman Smith. We spoke about the financials of the city. We're rolling up on the end of the fiscal year and seeing where we're at in relation to last year and how we're going to move forward. Primarily, most of our discussion was based upon we're looking now of potentially implementing a roundup program for our utility. There's other cities who does similar things. It's volunteer, of which you get the option of rounding up to the nearest dollar, and then that money being set aside and used for people who are in dire need of it. I think so. I guess the two pitting questions is one: is it going to be volunteer, or are we going to do what some municipalities do and make it opt out after a certain period of time? And then the second thing is, what is the particular who can benefit from this program? So I think there was a discussion of veterans and seniors, or just low-income individuals. But those are the points of contention that the Finance Committee is still debating, as well as other council members. I've spoken with other council members as well about this. So I don't know when we'll have it available, but we're still looking at those things. And that's kind of the main thing at this point that the Finance Committee is working on. Secondly, and lastly, we did spoke briefly about having more family-oriented activities here in Florence, including a potential of a water park. And I'm not saying that from any action items being taken from it, or it was just more so looking at what other family-oriented activities that we can bring to the city of Florence to make it a place where you can work, play, and stay. Live. I always mess it up. So those are the things that we look at, and I think we made at the end of the meeting, we kind of look forward to continuing those discussions at our next finance meeting, which is this month. Thank you. That will conclude my report this time.
Thank you, Councilman. At this time, we are proceeding to our executive session part of our agenda. And first we have is on our agenda for executive session is to receive legal advice on the issuance and sale of water and sewer revenue bonds, which would be 30-4-70A2, which are the items that we indicated under ordinance and introduction of ordinance under Bill 2023-2026 and Bill number 2023-2027. Then the next item will be a discussion of matters related to a proposed economic development project located within an overlay district 30-4-70A5. And the next item will be a personnel matter 30-4-70A1. Do we have a motion to go into second session? Motion second. In discussion, hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. We're now in executive session. We have returned from executive session, at which time no votes or action were taken. We will proceed back to our agenda. The first item was introduction of ordinance bill number 2023-26 for first reading. It is an ordinance to provide for the issuance and sale of combined waterworks and sewer system revenue bonds of the city of Florence, South Carolina, and other matters related thereto. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed, like sign. Let it reflect the bill has passed first reading. Next, we have bill number 2023-27 for first reading. It's an ordinance to revise the water and sewer rates for the city of Florence, South Carolina. Do we have a motion? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Build, baby, build.
Any Okay, no additional discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that the bill has passed first reading. And our next item on the agenda was an introduction of a resolution number 2023-35. It's a resolution and conditional grant agreement for the development of a location within the overlay district.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second in discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Let it reflect that resolution have passed. Other matter was a personnel matter. No action to be taken on that or vote. We can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion, second, in discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. We stand adjourned.